You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Volante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Volante with the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast. On cue, we have birds overhead. We are in Portland outside. And very special what if comic review episode, pulling on, honestly, the biggest talents I know, at least comic mind talent. That's all I'll say for now. Ethan Slayton, who just rode in on a motorcycle. Ethan Slayton, it's great to have you. That Vermont Motorcycle Club. I recall your time there. But
how's it going?
Wonderful. It's good to see you again, or at least hear you again. Something Rather Than Nothing alum, and we're going to introduce the alums first. Ethan Slayton, a gifted artist, and we got Sean Wynn. Welcome back again to the podcast.
It is good to be here. It's good to hear you. It's good to smell you.
Yeah. I hope that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, just maybe an animalistic, just kind of like, you're not a threat to me.
No, it's my whole thing.
Yeah.
That's how I familiarize myself with
Yes.
people.
I'm downwind, so I'm
this
good.
is we are in supernatural powers already in our What If episode, and we got Martin. And Martin, if you could introduce yourself and tell, since you're a new voice, a new face at the table to the show, tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Martin Michaud-Couch. I'm a ex-comic book worker, social media coordinator, customer service rep, I guess.
Yeah.
That's pretty much everything I got right now.
Yeah. You're an American, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds...
Is that what you want to label yourself as these
No, I
days?
just mean like in general, like it's 2021 America. Those, I mean, you know, it's the world the way it is.
I'm a
right
Vermonter,
now.
thank you, Ken.
Vermont. He says Vermonter. I always thought it was Vermonster, but maybe it's a
That's
regional
the
thing.
Ben and Jerry's super deluxe 20,000 scoops of pure sugar in a bucket. I'm not kidding.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
The Vermonster. Look it up. Ben and
Vermonster.
Jerry's.
Okay.
This is
Monster
why
research
all the
crew.
kids from the early 1980s now have diabetes.
I was actually just thinking about this. I think
You think about diabetes?
I think about diabetes, but I was also thinking I'm actually the only born and raised Portlander here.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
right.
Oh yeah.
Yes, let's Ken Volante.
So we gotta
I'm from-
kill him.
I'm from. Wait a second. I'm from. You went right for the jugular there. I'm trying to finesse this episode in, and that was Ethan who went for the kill. I wanted to say that you're a Vermonter or a Vermonster, but you're a Vermonter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Chicago. And Martin is
Portland. I'm just here.
Portland. Why is he the oddity?
Because it's Portland, and nobody that lives
Right.
here is from here.
Right.
Well, you live here, so that's not a correct statement.
But he's not people, though.
Oh, right. I forgot. Thank you for clarifying.
Maybe he's an emissary. maybe he's had an emissary role for these years for
He's just been waiting
the
for us
true
to show
community
up.
between the cultures.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We have too much material. You're going to learn about the cast, the characters around the table. But I'm going to launch into what is this thing. So normally you're going to learn about philosophy. You're going to hear me try to process philosophy on air. There's going to be a little bit of that in this episode because the episode is the what if episode of Something Rather Than Nothing. But for those who don't know, What If was basically an alternate storytelling, alternate reality, multiverse, different reality, something that came out of Marvel Comics.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Just a question.
What if this happened?
Yeah.
But I want to tell you about my issue because it came in and knocked on the door. So let me read the cover here. This is What If Conan the Barbarian Walked the Earth Today, and I quote, "And Marvel is not a company that's prone to bombast or overstatement, but if they were, this might be an overstatement. At last, the most requested, longest awaited, and most controversial tale ever.
Wow.
I'm not done.
That's some work, Marvel.
Ever.
Ever.
Of the world's most savage hero.
Wolverine? Oh, no, Conan.
Conan.
Oh, Conan.
And behind Conan is a picture, and I noticed this last night for the first time, of a poster of Star Wars. The movie poster, if you look on the cover, I'm showing the fellers here, is actually a Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I want to place you right in this issue could not be more 1978. I don't know how it could be anything more, and you'll learn more. What if Conan the Barbarian walked the earth today? This was 1978, so we're 2021, but this is 1978. So it's a time trip both for you listeners and for Conan. Now, the time traveling sequence here, I'm going to tell it really quick because the technical details don't hold up. Okay, basically, Conan is seduced. Go figure by a comely lass. Yes,
Not my Conan.
he is tripped up, misdirected, made drunk, and maybe drugged, and finds himself in bondage the next day. Where he's
What's
visited.
the age limit on this one?
Oh, this is generally accessible.
I don't think they really.
This
had
is
that.
off your circular racks back then,
Hey, kids, ball gags.
so to
Never-
speak. All right.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so the time travels. Basically, there's this evil wizard guy, and for some reason, the wizard guy throws Conan and the woman who duped him
Yeah.
in this kind of like a like if you had a well and just like the water bucket, just a big one going into the center of time chasm hole, and yeah, go ahead. You
He
go.
just has that, and this is what he.
yeah. Well, the wizard guy. This is what the wizard guy is just hanging around. Like he lives there, and it's in his basement or something, right? And you go down into it like Conan did. Now, as Conan's going down, of course, we've seen this. Think about the Flash, like, oh, dinosaurs, oh, Wild West, like cool things, all right? Now superheroes are there. So he's seeing all these flashy things start happening. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, the rope snaps. I forget what happens with the woman who he had bedded the night before, but I don't know what happened to her. But Conan all of a sudden is on the highlands of New York City. And he's holding his sword, and it's basically a blackout immediately that Conan is now in 1978. Specifically is in Greenwich Village. And I don't know if you've ever been to Greenwich Village.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've had a week there one weekend, if you know what I mean, fellas. Okay? Jenny, sorry to say that Jenny is an assistant here back behind me. I did have one weekend there in Greenwich Village. She's shaking her head.
Yeah.
Guess what happens next? And this is my favorite part of the issue. I'm going to go right out there with this one.
Okay.
Conan's in Greenwich Village. She's walking around. Hey, it's Sylvester Stallone. Hey, you in that Rocky movie? Hey, Arnold Schwarzenegger, pumping iron? And you see like Star Wars posters all over.
So how does Conan know any of these people?
He doesn't.
He doesn't. He's in the village.
He's just informed.
He's just
He's
there.
just walking around.
He can't speak English. He's from Samaria.
Yeah, that's right. Wait, is he still naked?
I will show you a picture. He does not wear much. And that very detailed, the fact that Conan is only wearing a loincloth actually comes into play two pages from now. The first thing that happens, though, is that Conan encounters this band. This band's name, unfortunately, I'm going to lay this right out there. Their name is Grope. The name of the band is Grope, and I'm going to
G-R-O-P-E?
G-R-O-P-E, Grope. This is a 1978 New York City punk band made up of 3 members. The 3 members, to the best way I can describe them, are
Donald Trump.
Nope.
Oh.
Close. Nah. Thank you. I'm gonna high five him. You can't see that. Listen, that's all right, Ethan. The first character I call Joker Kiss, and the reason why it's basically the Joker combined with Kiss, 1978 Kiss.
Yeah, like
makeup,
a 19. Yeah.
green
Yeah.
hair.
I totally see the green
Right.
hair.
He's not kidding.
Yeah, so what I'm describing to you is somebody like if you smashed up Gene Simmons in a
And,
Joker.
Joker from like the 70s and 60s comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Neil
drama.
Adams run. Like that's yeah.
Thank you, Martin. So the other one I call Bad Acid Mr. Miracle. He doesn't look good. This is a kind of Mr. Miracle looking guy, but this reality ain't a good one for this Mr. Miracle. The third one is only like a zombie. So they like kind of like death, like crypto, like weird band. So they have Joker Kiss, Bad Acid, Mr. Miracle.
I mean, that's his name,
And
Bad
Zombie.
Acid. That's also the punk band's name.
Okay.
You know, that's
So-
Now, do you think that was done on purpose? You think all those characters were done on purpose?
The only one I know for sure that was done on purpose was Joker Kiss. I think that's absolutely what's going on
It does
here.
fit
It kind of looks like
It's-
we're giving the shaft to DC.
There's some back and forth.
Yeah.
Thank you on that. So here's something really strange that happens if your journey is.
But wait a minute.
Yes,
is
go,
this
no,
John
go.
Buscema's artwork
I believe.
or Sal?
Yes.
Jeez.
Yes.
See, okay. Already,
Okay,
you have a
Eth-
better comic than I do. But go ahead.
Okay. So Ethan, explain to the audience now the identifying the artist and just.
John
Why,
Buscema.
that's a
John
good thing for
Buscema
you.
was kind of he was a in-house artist for many years, and he was kind of the guy that could basically draw anything and everybody to make them. They were all powerful, and he was the guy for a really long time, and he was just one of those prolific artists, fantastic artists. He would draw. He had an ability to draw realistic and combine it with cartoony. Like,
Yeah.
you look at this guy here. You know, he's got this kind of like.
That's no
shriveled
guy.
old-
That's no guy, Ethan.
I'm very sorry
Come
to the
on.
character who I just pointed out as a
Can't
man.
jump ahead one panel in his story without getting lost.
This great cartoony visage of an individual who may or may not be sexual in some way, shape, or form. And
They are. This is all a sexual scene.
What-
Let me fill in the gaps.
Oh, gross.
Jump in. No,
Why?
jump in there. No, jump in. I know. I have to lead you there. You need a shepherd.
No, I want to go away from there.
No, you
I
need.
definitely want to.
Everybody needs to go in on this. Okay. What happens is Conan is hungry. He pops into the grocery store. I think he just robbed some bread or probably raw meat out of the. He's hungry. He's Conan, for crying out loud. And he steps outside, and a woman, the older woman, and Ethan was like, I thought that was a guy, and that's fine. It's like he glanced over. It's no telling. This old
I have
woman
poor eyesight.
clobbers Conan with her purse, clobbers him, and he turns around. He's kind of like, what the fuck just like happened? Like, what did I just get hit with? And she's yelling at him, what are you walking around with your stuff dangling around, basically? And he says, what the heck's going on? He says, run around here with your beer bejesus hanging around like old lady. She yells at him, so she's upset because for her it's a decency question.
Yeah.
He's being indecent. So he looks at her finally and says, this is a witch from Cimmeria. So he's threatened in his basic mind, his basic Sumerian mind, and confused about being in Greenwich Village. Heck, I was confused about being in Greenwich Village, and I grew up on the East Coast, right? He's from Summeria. He takes her and stuffs her in a garbage can. An old, decrepit woman. She's no less than 75 years young, poor lady. And he's mumbling. Now, mind you, throughout this, how is dialogue happening? It's not. Conan is not speaking anything coherent to anybody.
Right.
Okay.
There's a language barrier.
Conan is going down the street. There's police out. All this is creating a ruckus. He passes Spider-Man, who actually plays no further role in this story. One panel.
just whipping by, just like, well, that's strange.
He's with Mary Jane. Her hair is beautiful and straight. That nice 1970s reddish black.
Oh,
you'd
that-
Like, is he
flaxen.
Spidey up, or is he Peter Parker right now?
Flaxen.
Is he Spidey up, or is he Peter Parker right now?
He's, oh my gosh, take a look at this, guys. I'm confused. Look, I'm confused. I'm going to have to put this over for verification. I'm handing this over to Sean and Martin. He asked me a simple question of whether Peter is in plain clothes or he's in Spider-Man, but I wasn't able to answer that question by the panel.
I mean, it's to me, it looks like a plaid shirt, but yeah, it's a red short sleeve plaid shirt with like just the lines that could be mistaken
For his
for
costume.
for the webbing on
Yeah.
it, like easily.
I don't think it's real. I don't think it's a costume, though. What is your take? Do you think
it's
it's
just I think it's just a
yeah,
shirt.
I think
sure.
it's just a collared shirt. It just happens to match his costume.
But to me, this makes me think that somebody wanted him to be in costume, and they're just like they started drawing the lines, and the colorist went in and was just like, no.
Isn't this violating, like, if you're in a band, you don't wear your own band shirt type of code? Or is
Yeah.
that going on here? Or is
No,
this,
it's kind of like
is
think
it
about,
okay?
Like, think about like old school like Power Rangers and whatever. Like every time they're like not in their Power Rangers outfit, they're still wearing like the Red Rangers always wearing a red T-shirt.
Right.
So you can identify them. You
Yeah.
need to identify them. Perfectly practical
Yeah.
explanation. Thank you. There's a reasonable explanation. Not everything is an X-file. All right, next thing that happens, remember we're in 1978. Conan is jumping out of danger. He scales the wall like he's King Kong. Up the wall. Look, he's scale that wall as he going to the top. And you're thinking right now, if we're thinking King Kong, we're thinking New York City, we're starting to think love interest, right? We're
Yeah.
starting to think
Yeah,
that.
because that's usually how that's.
He's on the wild. He's feral. He's from Cimmeria.
He lost.
He's
his
a
girl.
warrior. He probably lost the one in the well. We don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
I don't remember what happened to her. Pardon, it's no disrespect to her. I just don't know her outcome. I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't think they made that important anyway.
No.
In the story.
Okay. Conan is going into the city street. And at this point, what would approach but a yellow cab? This is 1978 New York City. And oh my gosh, this is the yellow dragon of lore that I will strike down with my sword, and jumps down, smashes the hood of this woman's cab. And this poor woman, she has a nice driver's cap. She's wearing a tube top. She has curly hair, very friendly. And she's like, what the heck you doing, you big oaf? Like, yeah, go ahead, Sean.
I gotta stop.
Cut in.
Okay,
I got a
point.
I've been waiting.
So he sees a yellow cab
Mm-hmm.
and decides that's the beast he needs to slay.
Yes,
So
that
you
is
telling me
exactly
up
the
to
case.
this point, being in and out the store and all up in New York City, this the first fucking car you see? Like is it the yellow, or is it the? There has to be.
I'm doing a quick review. Sean has brought up a very important point. Actually,
It could just be he's
Why?
heard about how bad Yellow Cab was, and
Okay.
just decided, I've heard that some New Yorkers don't like Yellow Cab, and I'm gonna avenge their
he's
their
defending,
wallets.
he's helping them out.
Yeah.
You
He's
didn't think it was a psychological warfare checker pattern?
I mean,
cab?
it's Conan. How much psychological patterns are we talking
It
about
was a
here, other
trigger
than?
pattern.
I think he's got like 3: sex, food, and breathing. I think
Okay.
that's about it. Oh, and 4: fighting. Yeah.
fighting before breathing. Weakling.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
What am I saying?
Goodness.
Where am I,
So,
man?
yeah,
No. It's, clarifying questions. I think I've said a lot. There's about halfway through this this issue. I'll open up. The clarification you need. This is a strange story. It's open for you.
Okay. I'm just saying, I get that we have to keep the plot moving, but that's, again, this is an older comic. I'm not gonna knock the writer or anything like that, but I just thought that was weird. It was like, oh, the yellow cab is what is gonna make. Now I've got to, take.
There's a plot point. The plot point is only to introduce Danette. We will soon know her as Danette. And Danette is the one I had this described with, she's a 78 plucky young woman, driving a cab. And now that cab's been destroyed. And she has a strong, healthy man wearing a loincloth
with his
as a
stuff hanging out.
passenger. Well, as the old woman had
the
already
old lady, yep.
warned us. And she was quickly discarded with.
So when did the cops get called? That's what I'm saying.
That's
When
the
did
thing, though. There's a panel a
Cops.
second ago where there were already
Cops.
cops.
where there were cops and they were like,
I say
Greenwich
two things.
Village.
I say two things. It's 1978, New York City. Yeah, cops not super copped up like you get into the 80s and 90s, so not a copped up state. But the other bit too is, I haven't told you, but cops are kind of behind Conan this whole story. Just so I'm trying to.
They're just watching him, just like, what's this guy gonna do?
You see this, Johnson? You see this guy?
They keep running after him, and they keep calling ahead, you know. It's like, hey, I went my 2 blocks. My union contract says 2 blocks. Bill and Larry, all right, you got the next 2 blocks.
Over in the
I'm
next
out.
precinct.
Next precinct.
We're done.
This isn't my issue any longer.
I need a donut.
All right, we got Conan
That
running
was-
through the city. A lot of good questions. The questions will not be answered, everybody. The questions will not be answered. Danette takes Conan to help him guide him in a certain way. They're helping each other, right? Remember now, Conan is not speaking a word, a lick of English or any other human of this time tongue. She brings him home, to her home,
As you do.
as you do from
In
attacking your cab,
for attacking your cab, having your schlong
Being a-
out,
So it's like
being a
George of the
non-fair
Jungle.
pay. What's he paying? How's he
Brendan
paying his
Fraser.
fare?
not saying anything in 1978 New York.
Not a recognizable language. It could be a terrorist. This is 78 New York, right?
There's so many red flags.
Right?
So many.
So many. But now she has allowed him to enter her abode. At least the...
You mean her home?
That's French. Are you speaking? I knew Martin was going to start speaking French at some point and start to trip me up. I rebuff like Conan rebuffs. And so there's some small talk. Conan does indeed take Danette to her bed, assist her along. And she was lonely. She was lonely. She works hard. And
So
she's
Conan's still helping her out.
She's found Conan because, guys, we can all be comfortable in who we are. You know, we can be comfortable in Ontario. Conan walking around New York City, who's like built, like walking around, you're pretty much the top guy, and you're carrying a sword, and nobody can stop you. You're pretty tough, right?
Yeah, because
You're Conan tough.
Why wouldn't Danette just be like, I've been waiting my whole life for this opportunity.
Barbarian man.
Just, smash my cab.
Smash my cab.
You ruin my means of financial security, but I'm gonna take you home. So.
All right. We got to move past the love scene, but before we move past the love scene, I actually have to read the panel from the love scene.
Oh no.
Now remember, Conan has struggled with the English tongue throughout this issue. In order to recognize that Conan is not speaking English, it is depicted by a thick line in the bubble. So you know it's a different language. It's Cimmerian. And he says, Conan, I am Conan. And she says, I think Danette. My name is Danette. Danette? Danette? Dan?
Wow.
Yep.
Silence. That's not the end of the issue. That's the end of the love-making scene. The next day, Conan, well, this is early morning. Conan is, I know you have a lot of questions. I want to be respectful of both the audience and my participants here at the table. We are going to spend time on what we need to spend time on. I'm going to open up again. Does somebody need to interject? The love scene is just finished. Conan is now jumping out of the window.
Let's call it what it is.
Gross. Disturbing.
That one. Yeah.
You're not going to... Why'd you have to Cosby this shit up? I just gave him a compliment 2 minutes ago. Is the floor closed or open at this point?
The floor is
I'm sorry.
closed. Let's
All
find
right.
out how else he fucks up.
All right. Conan jumps out of the window. He goes swinging from fire escapes. If you know the East Coast and some parts of the country, you have the fire escapes where you can just fly off of them and swing. He swings all the way down. And I want to tell you at this point, outside of the band Grope, that began this issue. I want to tell you about what attracted me, because this is an art and philosophy podcast. Well, it might not be after this episode, but it was. This has been, in its first 100 iterations, this has been an art and philosophy podcast. But in that spirit, what I want to say is this scene does go to the Guggenheim. So we're going to class up this shit, even if it's been sound tawdry or set late 70s New York. So we're gonna class this up. Now, why does Conan go to the Guggenheim? You may ask. You might have asked that if the open floor was open long enough. And you ask, why does he go? You know why? Danette, before he left the apartment, was able to identify that Conan was looking at books of old New York City maps and saw the Guggenheim as a ziggurat of Cimmeria. So Conan believes, in his Cimmerian mind that's been translated into modern times, when he's going to the Guggenheim, he's not going for the Picassos, let's say. He's going to a ziggurat or a temple in his mind.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is an art podcast. He's at the Guggenheim. One of the first things that happened is that some kid, and this kid isn't, remember, this kid in my view isn't more than 16. He's got a bowl cut, and guess what he grabbed out of the Guggenheim? He went over to the Cimmerian stash of treasures from ancient Cimmeria and pulls out a sword. So now this little 16, 17-year-old brat is striking up a sword to Conan and looks to be like, you might as well be the mighty king of my land, like threatening me. I don't care if you're whatever you are. I'm from Cimmeria.
The kid grabbed the sword?
Yeah, he's a looter. I'm sorry. He's a looter. He's a
What
looter.
timing?
He's a looter. Late 70s.
This kid's dead.
Wait, so like the Guggenheim's just open right now, right? And this is the time he decided to steal the sword?
I'm sorry. I can't do this perfectly the first time through, and this story is complicated. Let me take us into the Guggenheim a little bit slower. Conan sees the ziggurat Guggenheim. He goes there. He's going there on a mission. There is a robbery in progress. Also in the New York City around this time, let me fill it out a little bit more. I've told you about Grope the band, but outside of the village you have a blackout. You have 1970s conservative-minded editorial boards where, why are black people burning their own black neighborhoods? Why are they speaking about injustice in this way? Why, if you want to be taken seriously, do you have your hair in a ponytail, tail, you dirty ass hip? It's like very negative. This is going on. There's a lot going on in the background. And I don't know how much to tell you. This is the political background, the cultural background. So you might as well have a robbery going on at the Guggenheim. A pretty high-class heist, if you ask me.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I didn't go to your fancy institutes of art learning, but
Everybody knows the Guggenheim.
people don't just walk in there and steal shit all the time. I know that. You know that, right, Ethan?
Oh yeah.
They don't. You just won't walk in and steal shit.
I wouldn't take a pack of bubblegum.
Right? 16-year-old kid with the strongest sword in the land. Boom. He gets, let's put it politely, a knuckle sandwich. I'll clean up the act for a little bit. A knuckle sandwich right across the cheek. He's not dead. He
looks dead in that
Conan is on a rampage. During this rampage, I'll describe it in broad strokes. He throws not one, but two adult males off multiple stories in the Guggenheim onto concrete freaking splat.
Okay.
All right?
So he just murdered some people.
Conan is cleaning up this mess. Bull in a china shop. Not stopping. And this is the Guggenheim. Now me, I'm an art lover. All of you art lovers around this table.
Yes.
I'm aghast because of my recent sensibilities to art and treasures. I'm like, the Guggenheim's getting fucked up. All right, it's a comic book, but obviously I connect with comic books, and I don't have as much. I don't have a great separation between what is real in the world and what Conan did. If I did, we wouldn't be doing this podcast, for example.
Fair point.
So I have trouble with those connections. So kid gets punched out. 2 guys are thrown off the balcony. This is big time. Conan's in full Hulk mode, and you know full Hulk mode means you jump out into the street and you gotta find a vehicle. It's not a cab this time. We got a Beetle. A Beetle. He VW Beetle. Boom, Conan picks that up like it's a little piece of gold like leaf you put on a painting, like snap it like that. Boom, smash. Things are getting smashed about. Danette shows up again. Crazy scene for her to
Walked into, yeah.
step into. I mean, there's no police line set up. They do a cutscene. This is the cutscene I told you about. Why is everybody burning their own neighborhoods, right? Somebody's face probably looks like Malcolm X. Oh, he's going to scare you and kill you. Like, all right, I get the political message. Let me go on to this. I'm trying to enjoy this story, Marvel Comics. My best of my ability. There's multiple scenes that happen. Anytime here the fillers are throughout this story is that when Conan's walking anywhere in New York City, again the police are right behind them. Somebody's bumping into them. Somebody looks like a cultural hero. You know, everything's a bump and kind of like a little bit of a sight gag. Guys are getting thrown off the balcony. And when it comes to my concerns about actual art pieces here, this is where they manifest themselves the most out of any. Conan is now directly engaged with what we would call art and is actually described as modern sculpture art that weighs more than a ton. Nobody could lift this thing except Conan. He picks it up like a freaking wiffle ball, throws this shit, hits this guy's skull. And this thing's gonna weigh 3,000 pounds, right? I'm not talking like I'm threatening you. Oh, I'm gonna slap you, Ethan, you silly boy. I'm saying 3,000 pounds across the skull. This is where I get really confused if you're not confused already. This is where it gets strange.
I've been confused.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Hang in there. We'll fill it in. I think the gun is the guy who got hit with the sculpture. I'm surprised on the next panel because gosh darn it, I'm expecting really Jello, like on the ground, not to be.
Right.
That's as kind as I could put it. His head's still there and he's still alive, even though I thought he was dead. Like, I don't care what your character ranked, like for like helmet and shit. Like, you ain't surviving. Danette is upset by this whole mess. We have to understand that bringing Danette into this situation, there might be gender dynamics and dynamics between her and Conan. She's upset. This is a very upsetting scene. She does have feelings for Conan, although they have not conversed in their native tongue, but they have spoken, what shall we say, the universal language of physical love.
Yeah.
At least once that we clued in on the panel.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know some of you said stop early in this story. We're deeper into this story if you know what I mean. There's no way to end this story properly. There's no way you can end it. This is where you got those records in the 50s, and it's 2.5 minutes. I don't give a fuck if you're on the best melody.
Yeah.
Turn down the volume, cut, what's side B, right? This story's got to end somewhere. Something like Conan going on top of what is a ziggurat to him. Remember, I don't know what a ziggurat is. I just know the word. I mean, I don't think anybody does, but it's a tower or something, ancient tower. He goes to the top of the ziggurat. Guggenheim gets out there. Big lightning. You know, I'm thinking this scene's almost like Star Wars. Luke Skywalker, lightsaber,
Right.
Arthur, outer space guy. It has everything in there. Blowing up Thor, Mjolnir, the whole thing. Everything's in there. He disappears. He's gone. He's back in the ancient lands. Danette is left behind. There's one detail about Danette. I'm going to mention a couple more details. I'm going to open up for a free-for-all. 2 details about Danette threw me off, and maybe I'm a simple-minded man, but there is a comic book. They refer to her as a redhead, but her hair is just honestly blonde throughout the
definitely
whole.
blonde.
So it threw me off. And you could call her strawberry. I don't care if you give me a better adjective, but she's not a redhead. So it was just a little irritation. And if I'm irritated about this detail after that tawdry tale that I just spun to you.
That's
like I'm like
you?
they got the color wrong, right? I'm like too much of a critical. Like that color is terrible, right? I have one more thing before I open it up because I have to leave this issue behind. There was another issue which I won't describe too much, but there's a related story that Conan the Barbarian, if he was stranded in the 20th century. And to give you an indication, I want to tell you that both of these are absolute must-reads for their own purposes. But they're both very good in their own way. I told you the reasons why I chose the one that I did was 1978, but I want to tell you, I chose it over the updated one, and the updated story was different and featured Conan busting into New York City, busting into a black gang, creating co-ownership ruling of the gang with the black weightlifting head of the gang, basically starting hustling. So they basically throw Conan's in this weird moral territory in this whole story, as you could tell. Yeah. They throw him in as like bad guy, like underworld of like New York City. So the tale is kind of told with him navigating. He pimps. Conan pimps.
Son.
Conan pimps.
But look at the cover.
But I mean, honestly though,
it shows you that. Go ahead, describe the cover, Martin,
this
please.
What if cover.
Describe it.
What if Conan, we're stranded in the 20th century, is literally Conan in his armor with this massive metal helmet, pointing a magnum at the reader.
Thank you. No, don't hold back. This is people have to listen to this. We're getting to see it, and it is startling. Yes.
Honestly, now that you said that, like you said, Conan pimps in that issue. Based on everything we saw in the issue prior to that, that's not that far. Like,
no, it's not.
It ain't like he's got any respect for women.
If he lands on the other side of the village, that's his life. Not to be like, what chance and happenstance, if you don't speak English, you end up in the wrong side of the neighborhood. You're involved with other business.
Yeah, he's certainly not going to be chilling in Manhattan. That's what I'm saying. He's not going to be. That's crazy though.
So I really don't. I mean, I love these issues. I don't want to talk about me being the person who talks about these issues. I want to open up because, for me, I needed processing. I've read these issues 3 times a piece. And so I've needed processing, but I processed them through my verbal processing now. Thank you, everybody. That is What If Conan the Barbarian walked the earth today. At last, the most requested, longest awaited, and most controversial tale ever of the world's most savage hero.
Yeah.
Okay, so first I'm going to say this. I am going to try my best to not point out all of the obvious plot holes in this book. And it's because this show has been predominantly about philosophy. I'm going to try to stick to that.
Like a conceptual approach to this story, maybe.
Yes. And so, right off the bat, I would love to say, this is a story about man's struggle and, identifying with his route. This is not that at all. This is so hard to pinpoint for this material because it's shit.
It feels sloppy. Is that what you're saying? It feels sloppy. It seems hasty.
There's nothing for me to gain from it. There's no insight in this. Not that I picked up, but fellas, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, yeah, jump in, please.
It's interesting because this is maybe the first time, the 78 issue. Maybe this is the first time they published Conan being in the now. But 3 years ago, he became part of the regular Marvel universe and became an Avenger.
A savage Avenger.
A savage Avenger. Okay, there we go.
Well, lean in physically and lean in the more metaphorical sense. Lean into us. Tell us about this, Ethan.
Well, Marvel decided we're going to put Conan into the regular world because we want to see what he's going to do with today's villains and today's heroes and everything. And it was weird, but also kind of fun. but also really weird, but a lot of good art. I'll say it has a lot of good art.
Throw it in there. Thank you.
A lot of good art.
I just wanted to ask so you said Marvel wanted to put Conan in the Avengers to see what he would do as a hero. I don't know a lot about Conan. Is he really a hero? I mean, because based on this comic, would probably be the first.
Have you? Let me ask you a question. Have you read a bunch of Conan?
No.
That's what he said.
I have.
Yeah.
But
No, he's asking you. He's asking you.
But is he a hero?
So in the world of
Samaria.
Samaria, yes.
I want a 30-second stab when you're done. That's all. That's all. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm done.
No, go ahead.
Now I want to know.
No, I wanted to open the floor. I'm sorry. I was trying to.
No,
be too
come on.
hasty.
I want to hear it.
If it's good material, it's good material, son.
Yeah. Bring it.
I don't know. I gotta tell you. I got hijacked. I lost my train of thought. I'll tell you why. And I'm gonna have to abdicate my speaking time to everybody. Whenever I think of Conan the Barbarian, I think of Red Sonja, and I distracted myself momentarily. So I threw myself off. I'm a huge Red Sonja
right
fan,
on.
So that's why I wanted to defer.
Oh, no worries.
I get that.
But so in the world of as a Sumerian, Conan, not
Right.
me. I'm a Vermonter. We
Right.
already established that. He beats up the wizards that try to take power from smaller people. He kills those guys. So he is considered a hero. He is also, but in the novels, if you want to go the novel route, he's also primarily at the beginning a thief.
Right.
And so that's him scaling the wall in the comic.
Very
to
much
go
what
up-
he would do normally.
He's scaled walls to break in. I mean, I think in the movie,
Yep.
with Thulsa Doom, he goes in to steal that giant gem
Right.
with the huge snake there. But that's, he definitely is kind of like, I wouldn't call him an anti-hero, but I would definitely call him somebody who's like, yeah, I'm going to beat up the bad guy because he's doing wrong to me. And he's doing some wrong stuff to some other people who are going to pay me to go kill this guy. I'm going to go kill this guy.
Yeah.
He's a mercenary.
Right.
But he also has a good heart, because there are moments through his journey that he actually does the right thing. He eventually falls in love with this woman called Belit, who is like a sea captain.
Does she have any witch characteristics as well?
Does she? Does
Yeah,
Belit?
yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't either.
I don't think so. I think she
Sorry
was
about
she
that.
was a Red Sonja, I think,
Okay.
to a large degree. And so he kind of fell in love with this woman who was leading the ship of pirates. Like, she was like, this was Marvel in the 80s. She was like, I'm running the show and he's working for her. So that
Yes.
was kind of cool.
I would read that.
Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. But so is he a hero? No. Is he a bad guy? No. Is he a sellsword? Yes. Is he a rogue? Yes.
For me, it's almost like, is Odysseus a hero in like the
Yeah.
Odyssey? It's like the morals are so fucked up. Pardon my French. You can't tell. I don't know how you grade them. I don't know. It's not clear. I will say one quick thing on that though too is that universe has them moving into ruling capacity. So you have King Conan, which is the
Right.
mature Conan, and Queen Sonya, and I love those because then it's like the political question of how they specifically rule with their semi-aggression, war, deal making.
All
So
of
I like
their
that kind of like
experience and how they got
diplomacy.
there. Yeah.
I'm not saying they're geniuses, but
No.
I actually think Sonya is
Well, Sonya's always
Sonya's the PhD out of the two.
Right,
but-
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Yes.
King Conan is actually a great series. You're talking about
I love
how
King
he
Conan.
runs the
Yes.
kingdom. It's cool because he's letting he's got a son who he calls Khan.
Yes.
So it's kind of truncated Conan real hard.
Well, you had to truncate the Annette's name.
I mean, yeah, to Dan. Dan. Ugh,
Dan, and
Yeah.
that was weird too. Because why end it Dan? I mean, it's
I don't know.
why
don't
did
know.
that happen? I mean, it's just an odd stumble.
It's easier to say.
It's
They
for
were going- they were-
Conan. For Conan, it is easier to say.
They're going for kind of gross male humor, I think, a little bit.
You know, they went for a lot of gross things in there.
Yeah, they did.
Guys, Sean and Martin, what I want to do is bump it over to you. What's your reaction to some of this and your knowledge level of Conan and maybe how you're entering this stream, to use the Buddhist metaphor to try to clean it up again, but where you're entering this Conan? in your mind, your experience?
Well, okay, so I am a Conan reader.
Yes.
And so I kind of knew what to expect. I've read a lot of Conan, and I knew that he was a motherfucker. So I just didn't, I hadn't read this particular what if issue, and I wasn't sure what take they were gonna go, because like as Ethan pointed out, you have variations of Conan that they can present. There is Conan, the person, the kind of scumbag with a heart. There is the mercenary Conan, the thief Conan, and then the guy who just will beat everything in the room. In this case, they kind of with like, it didn't even feel like a heroic tale of somebody like being an underdog and like making their way back home, or like a journey or anything.
Everything seemed accidental almost.
It was just like he didn't even gain anything from this experience. He learned nothing. He got thrown back in time. Some shit happened, and then he magically got home, and that's it. Like he didn't come back with like some afterthought, some insight, nothing.
We keep bumping up into the guardrail here. That is Conan's intelligence. You've made a comment. I made a comment. We got to be careful here. There's not a lot of room on the side of the road. Martin, how do you come to Conan? I can't imagine you poor friend. What state you're in right now, because we're not doing well, but at least we had a little bit of something to bring in.
The only real thing that I know about Conan prior to this comic is the Arnold movies. That's it. That's all I know. So I know he's a savage. That it's all. So him coming to quote modern day New York, I was like, yeah, that's probably about it. It's really he just had a vacation day through time. It's just they just dropped him off. They just dropped him off, and they're like, hey, have fun for a day, and he
I got a sharp table here. Yeah. I think you.
But one thing I wanted
feeling some of the same energy. Go ahead.
But like one thing I like going through this comic and even looking at the cover of it, to me it just feels like something that was like they're in an editor room and they're like, we need a what if for February. Who's got something? And somebody just said, well, we got Conan, right? What if he and Spider-Man teamed up? And they're like, nah, we can't do that. But what if he was just in New York? Fine, do it.
Look out the window.
Get it done.
What's going on outside the window?
I need it done by this afternoon.
Make it current.
Because even
throw some Black Panthers in there, right?
Right.
Because even looking at the cover, to me, is kind of a ripoff of and I don't remember, and guys correct me, Days of Future Past.
Yeah, I was just about to point
it
that out.
looks like that iconic Wolverine Kitty Pryde cover of Days of Future Past.
That's exactly what that is.
I'm just like,
oh my gosh,
why?
I didn't.
So to me, it just
you saying that
it's not
now
like it's not like haha wink wink. It's no. This was sitting on the desk next door, and they're like, yeah, that'll work. Let's just redo that.
I think I just want to hit on a common theme. How do you get a common theme out of this? And congratulations to us. But the theme, the theme of a certain haphazard storytelling, a certain lack of look, we're not moral center. I'm not a moral center guy, but like a little bit of a guidepost to see how decisions are made. He stuffed an elderly woman in a trash can.
Maybe he's not a good guy.
Well, after she properly for her generation corrected the man with a loincloth walking around the city, probably for his own protection. I mean, he's a big guy, but you're walking around without clothes. The police are gonna get you. And he's not speaking English.
Yeah.
And he stuffs her in a...
Well, she did hit him with her hex bag.
Yep.
So.
To admonish him at first.
Yeah.
All right. That was... it was a journey for me to go through.
3 times.
It was a journey. 2 issues 3 times, 6 times. Part of my obsessive nature. One of the things, dear listeners, with something rather than nothing, is I did bestow our great co-hosts here in conspirators within What If, with candy in comic books and other sundries. We are going at a pace where the material we're going through is kind of like going through the book of the Corinthians, much bigger, much bigger. I'm not saying it's stylistically the same. I'm saying a lot of material to delve into, but we are going to move in now without pause. We are going to go into our second issue. This has not been pre-decided. We'll go to random unless one of our one of the great co-conspirators here jumps in.
Looks like Sean's doing it.
Sean is up. Sean Wynn, you might remember him. I think from episode might have been like 8. I keep saying issue or episode 8 from the Praetorians. A good friend of mine. Great to see him face to face. We got comic books in front of us. Sean Wynn's going to tell us his what if scenario, and hopefully we can hold on to during high winds like that Conan story. Go ahead, Sean.
All right. So the issue I chose, I think you'll be pretty happy with, because I do think we will be able to discuss a little bit of philosophy because of this.
Whoa.
There are some moral decisions with this one.
Wow.
So what I have here is what if Spider-Man House of M. And for those that don't know, the House of M Marvel storyline is kind of already its own what if story. It's the big Marvel event where the Scarlet Witch has changed the entire reality so that the world is now beholden to mutants in power, specifically her father, Magneto. And so all of them, she changed everybody's reality and kind of like gives them all of their desires to some extent. Spider-Man ends up in this world. Now, the thing that's important to know about Spider-Man when he gets his reality changed is this. When he gets his desires filled, what that means is that Gwen Stacy has never died.
Oh.
So Green Goblin never killed Gwen Stacy. He is now married to her, and they have a child, and he's rich and famous and respected.
Peter Parker is
What?
married to her now?
Yes,
Okay.
Peter Parker. Now,
Okay.
so unlike the actual Spider-Man from our supposed, universe, that's complete opposite. He's with Mary Jane.
Real
everybody hates him.
Gwen Stacy.
Yes,
real
Gwen Stacy. Yeah. So in that world, he's married to Gwen, rich, famous, has a child, loving family, everything. He's got everything, right? So eventually, the whole House of M storyline ends where the heroes have figured out this is not their real reality, and they fight to change it back. And they do that. And Peter joins them because he knows it's the right thing. But then that means he loses everything he's always wanted. So it goes back to the regular reality where he doesn't have a child. He's not rich and famous. He's still like whatever shit job he had at that time.
Right.
And, he's still with Mary Jane, and she's fine, but whatever.
Well, let's not
no
just
child.
skip over that. Mary Jane is a wonderful woman.
Yes, she is a very intelligent, I want to say go-getting businesswoman and supermodel.
Actress.
And
actress as well.
Yes. But anyway, so the what-if story that they put in here was what if that reality sort of didn't change, or because what happens at the end is that he just loses all that and goes back to regular ass Avengers storyline, and that one was important for me anyway because if you read enough Spider-Man comics, it's very rare that you see Peter Parker lose his shit.
Yeah, true.
Straight up, he's got a shitty life. He always has, but he's always joking around and just well, I guess I'll just keep on web swinging. Not this time.
Not this time. Okay.
When that happened to him, he straight up tried to tear up Avengers Mansion. He was about to really, people had to hold him down. Okay. So this particular issue. So what happens here is they're telling the story of what if at the end of that, Gwen Stacy somehow, because of her connection to Peter and the love of that, did not get blinked out of reality when they get changed back to ours. So the first half of this book, and I'm going to tell you right now, there are 2 stories in here. I had no idea at first. There are 2 separate stories in this what if issue. Okay?
I mean, two just...
2 what ifs.
2 what ifs.
All right.
Whoa.
Yeah. So the first one, okay, it's actually kind of messed up. What happens is that Peter does end up back in our reality, but so does Gwen.
So now he knows what he had.
He remembers everything, and so now this whole story is about like him coming. Like he knows exactly what happens, but he's married to Mary Jane now, but still remembers being married to Gwen and the life he had there.
Oh, that's messed up.
Oh.
Exactly.
That's messed up.
It just sunk in, I think, at this side of the table at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and so he hasn't said anything to MJ in this whole thing, and it's just, you know, she's his wife, and she's like, I know something's wrong with my husband, but like, what is he supposed to say? He's not talking about it, you know. But
So he knows, and he also knows that reality isn't a reality anymore.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, well, he knows that that reality isn't a reality anymore because he's back in our world. But more importantly, it switches over to what is happening with Gwen, because now she's here too. Peter doesn't even know that yet. So Gwen is in what modern day New York City, which she thinks is still her world, because it was pretty similar, except that none of the numbers in her phone work. Other people live in her house.
No motherfucking pandemic. Sorry.
And so, of course, you know, to throw science into the mix, because she's here and there's something in our world that is not supposed to exist, things start to go wrong, and the first person to pick up on it is Doctor Strange.
Oh, that's cool.
He's on the wavelength?
Kind of like a, you know, like she could be breaking the walls of reality kind of thing and ruining everything.
She's a variant.
Yes,
Good.
she's a variant.
Man,
And,
whenever I'm stumbling, Martin speaks up. Oh my goodness.
you know, and so basically, because it's causing ripples somehow, and this part doesn't make sense, okay? The ripples that are being caused by Gwen Stacy somehow continue to ruin Peter's life.
Oh.
Like, it somehow directly affects him and causes, like, so much unhappiness where, like, people just kind of start dying and losing battles.
Oh.
Because she's present.
Like,
so she's causing some kind of like reality shift,
correctiveness or something.
Problem.
I don't know which reality.
we're all having a visceral reaction to this because you already talk about a lot of times how shitty it is for him, like going through things, and you talk about, all right, here's shitty and here's whipple waves of shitty and like more, you know?
Well, I wonder, is her reality trying to break into his reality?
I think so, to some extent, because like in this one he loses Aunt May.
Oh, okay.
Stabbed to the heart?
Yeah.
You know. Oh, I forgot something very important. In the House of M World, Uncle Ben's still alive too.
Oh.
What's
that's
he up
something
to?
else.
What's he up to?
Living with them.
Running numbers or something?
No, he's just like
just
he's
hanging
living,
out?
No, it's Peter and Uncle Ben and
Yeah.
Gwen and their child and
Yeah.
and they're all rich and famous, you know. So like when he loses that's something else he loses too.
So he also lost his child in this issue, in this
Yes.
what if.
Yes.
And Gwen, does she? I'm guessing she remembers, and she's just like, "Where's my kid?"
You know, they actually didn't bring that part up.
Okay.
She's so, I think she's so, you know, bewildered by just being somewhere so unfamiliar that
I mean, yeah, I know. Like, I mean, I don't have a kid, but I can only imagine if I woke up in a place and I didn't really understand what was going on, and I'm checking my phone. The first thing I'm going to do is check my phone to make sure the phone numbers work before I check to see where my kid is.
But you know what? At the same time, too, they do mention
Yeah.
that they were all together, so she's probably assuming that her son is with Peter.
That could be, yeah.
But this whole thing with Gwen also somehow results in the Green Goblin, who was in prison, being free and taking over like a evil gang of villains, and they just start attacking everybody. And so now Mary Jane dies.
Oh, come on.
Oh, so they
Well,
switched it.
Yes,
Okay.
Mary Jane dies, and because she's trying to protect Peter. Actually,
Of course
The Green
she
Goblin
would.
kills
Of
her.
course she would.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Peter's crying and losing his mind, and
Sure.
Gwen is at this point now, because of the help of Doctor Strange, is like kind of witnessing all this. And so her decision is like, do I fight to stay here, or do I do what's right and just tell Doctor Strange to send me back to my reality that no longer exists?
I mean, from Doctor Strange's perspective, why give her a choice and just
Well,
alakazam her butt back to reality so that people aren't dying?
I think, because I think at the same time, Doctor Strange can also feel and see her pain, obviously. Too,
Is it
she
like
didn't
a...
do this on purpose.
True.
Is it like an alarm that goes, like a sort of cosmic alarm to like Doctor Strange, like that he picks up? Like, because I'm picking like a psychic, cosmic, like, I don't want to say force, it brings in too much stuff, but like the turbulence, you know, like,
and they show that in one of the
something's
panels
going
here,
on. Yeah.
In one of the panels here, that right during the
I like that.
conversation with the Avengers.
The art looks beautiful
he
looking
just
from
kinda
afar.
Goes, oh, I have to go, and just disappears. And then he goes and finds Gwen and goes, you know, you're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that goes down. Mm-hmm. And but yes, you're right. The art is pretty fantastic, and I will talk about that in a second. Basically, because I want to get to what Gwen ultimately decides. What she decides is that she doesn't know how to fix this. Doctor Strange is now caught up fighting all these villains that have been caused by these ripples and all this. So she decides to jump off a cliff.
So the story's really seems like it's really about her.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts with Peter, but really evolves more into what will Gwen do in this case. But Peter's present, and even in the presence of now holding Mary Jane, who's definitely passed in his arms, he sees this taking place, and just like the original story, dives after Gwen to save her.
Yeah.
Always falling.
Always falling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's a good point.
here's the thing. He sort of catches her with his body.
Sort of.
So,
Catch. I'm a baseball fan here. It's
it's more like
kind of catch it or you don't.
He was able to shift his body in air so that he would land on the bottom.
Yes.
But in the end, neither one of them make it, and they both pass with a kiss.
They both die?
That's what the story makes
Tells you.
And that's the end of the story.
That's the end of the story.
That's
Like, so basically what they're saying is the what if story
Is they're dead.
that if Gwen had somehow made it into our reality,
Peter's dead.
everybody's fucked.
Everybody's screwed up. So Gwen's just a problem in general.
So, like, before I get to the second story on this, I want to know, what are your thoughts on, like, could you have been strong enough to make that choice?
I don't know. The heroes always define the best of us, and you know, the Joseph Campbell idea of a hero is someone who is willing to take those moves, and the normal everyday person is not someone who makes those moves. It depends on the caring, though. You take Peter Parker's caring into account, you take Gwen's caring into account, and how much they cared about each other. So, sure, that makes sense to me, because he's a hero, she's heroic. And, you know, that was his first real love.
Yep.
I tend to the biggest issues that I pick up on, because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan.
Yeah.
You know, just love it all. And like the Gwen Stacy dying was like, in my kid brain, like, not a real death, but some sort of death, like something, like some sort of like real type of death. The spooky parts, I love the comedy, I love the color, the athleticism, Spider-Man, all that stuff. The parts that always freak me out, I think, are the horror parts, are the psychological schisms.
Oh, totally.
Right? The Green Goblin, the fractured personality, and like when there's a lot of those elements that they start to twist on emotionally, I think that's why Spider-Man, like, a lot of like that emotional story, like it kind of grabs you in there and scares you and like delights you that he might win.
Can I dovetail on that?
Yeah, please go. That's what I had.
So bringing this up, and this is interesting about the Conan story too, is like both of these stories actually happen later on in the MCU. Remember One More Day?
Oh, yeah.
He remembers everything,
Yeah.
but he gets everything that he wants, and he remembers all the stuff that happened before. And so it's interesting that these issues, when was that published?
This one was
And this
That's
is
an advertisement. Oh, there we go.
yeah.
Hey, my bad. 2010.
2010. Yeah, so it was before that. So I'm wondering, like, what if is it like a playground to generate better, more solid ideas?
Well, I looked at the early what ifs is like they are like there's such a sophistication to multiverse now that
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you read these things like we're just dissatisfied consumers. Like
Yeah, they
Sure,
just want.
sure.
They just
back.
want to. Yeah, I view the early what ifs as just like them just trying to have some fun with something and just
Oh,
make
totally.
one shot and no continuity, no nothing.
But I didn't take
whatsoever.
him. Here's the thing. I didn't take him
why
seriously
would
as a
you?
kid. No, as a kid. But the thing is, I take him seriously now. But as a kid, I was like, who cares? That's not real.
Right.
That type of
Right.
thing.
But like when you get into these, when you get into these more, I would say, modern era, especially when it's the big event what ifs, it's almost like they had two ways they could have gone with this, and they're like, well, we went this way, but we still want to show what could have happened, because like I remember reading Avengers AVX, Avengers versus X-Men.
Yeah,
The
yes.
what if, I remember when that trade, I was all excited because I was all about that AVX stuff. And it just read like, oh, what if we just flipped the coin and went the other way? And it honestly wasn't that good. And it wasn't that good.
Just reverse everything and
Well, it
run it
was
through
like-
the reverse AI and kick it out.
Yeah, it was pretty much, instead of, and this isn't my issue, but it was instead of the Avengers stopping Hope Summers, the adopted grandchild of Scott Cyclops, from getting the Phoenix Force, what if she did just get it?
Right.
And then oh,
What if the other thing happened?
what if the other thing happened? Yeah. What if this did happen? And it dovetailed and just went off the rails. And by the end of it, I think I threw it. I think I threw the trade. I was like, this is stupid.
Like, what if Spider-Man liked chocolate?
Yeah.
You've been betrayed.
I was betrayed. And this is me going on a tangent because
Get it out.
anybody that knows me knows I'm a big Scott Summers, Jean Grey
Yep.
person. And by the end of this
Yes.
this what if Avengers versus X-Men, Jean Grey at the time in the comics was dead. The Phoenix Force resurrects her body as her, and they end up destroying the world and rebuild. And at the last two panels are her and Logan, Wolverine. They're going to now be the new Adam and Eve and repopulate the world. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
That's not good.
I mean, that makes sense. As a Wolverine fan.
Ethan was just waiting to take out the
He was waiting. He was ready to
adamantium,
snick.
adamantium
Oh, no.
claws. He'd been
Right.
waiting. All right, you got it out. We saw what was going. Good job.
It was terrible.
Yes,
But anyway, that's not my.
Sean, you surprised us with this is a special issue. This is two what ifs.
Yeah.
You've
Oh,
told
yeah.
us a spectacular tale on the first one.
Well, actually, the
yeah.
second one is equally as interesting.
Really? Okay.
Because something I left out that kind of caters to both, and I left it on purpose because it's mentioned more in the second half of this.
Okay.
In the regular House of M storyline, there is a point where Peter, because that world is ruled by mutants, people just assume he's a mutant. He's actually not. We all know this.
Right.
But when he is outed as not being an actual mutant, he loses all of his fame and fortune and is kind of ousted. And he kind of loses his mind over that. Like he's, his life has changed and all that. So at some point, he kind of snaps and takes on the persona of the Green Goblin.
I know it.
Wow. Okay.
All right, so that's mentioned in the regular House of M. Now keep in mind, this is the what if now, which is funny because at no point did they ask a regular a question. It's just what if
They just
something
You're thrown in the middle of the scene,
right.
right? Like French cinema here. Action
So-
is moving. You're thrown in.
Now this is again, this one actually heavily involves Gwen, but in a different aspect. So I think the what if question is what if Gwen Stacy survives? Period. Right? All right. So but this time, when the world has changed back to normal and he's here with our world, Gwen is there. She comes back, or she survives, but so does his son. All right? And so the scene starts with Peter and Mary Jane and Aunt May in their apartment, and he's like cleaning the house and preparing dinner, and he's telling them like we got some special guests coming to dinner, but he hasn't told them who. And he opens his door, and it's Gwen and his son, and he sits them down at the.
Sorry.
Let's pause. Let's pause. Wait a second.
I'm going to start it with after I've given a description of what has happened
Well, with the goblin.
with the goblin, and go right into story 2.
All right, everybody, we're back in. We'll project towards the microphone center. Sean, you're in. Take us on the second story of What If.
Right. So, like I said, keep in mind, it's important to remember that in the regular House of M storyline, at some point, Peter has snapped and taken on the persona of the Green Goblin. Now, jump into story 2. It just kind of starts. Peter, Mary Jane, and Aunt May are in their apartment. Peter is running around frantically, and it looks like he's kind of cleaning the place up and maybe preparing dinner at the same time for a special guest. Mary Jane and Aunt May have no idea who this is coming to dinner. Doorbell rings. Peter runs to get it. This is another What If story about Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy.
The special guest coming to dinner is Gwen Stacy and Peter's son from the alternate timeline.
Good Lord.
Okay, because now they have both survived and they are in our world. And so Peter has arranged this dinner to tell his current wife, MJ,
No.
and his yes.
No.
By the way, BTW.
Hey, honey.
Hey, honey, here's my honey.
Remember that trip to New Orleans?
So you're not gonna believe this. No. So yeah.
She's
so,
coming
yeah.
back. So yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Like, can you imagine sitting down trying to explain to like your wife, like, so listen, I was in an alternate dimension, and I was completely happy and married to another woman, and I got a child.
This is how you get out of doing
We
the
good?
dishes. You know.
And the child's name.
Yeah.
The child's name is whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what this dinner's for, and as I would expect, the writer has also written it in a format that, like, neither one of them like this bullshit.
Right.
Nobody's happy.
You know, Gwen is, trying to be polite, and MJ is just like, every second is like, bitch, get out of my table.
I'll make you eat that macaroni salad in the worst way possible.
And
Yeah.
so that ends
time.
That ends poorly, right? And then the story continues on where, him and I guess he somehow smoothed things over with MJ, but also has kept Gwen in his life. So the next part of the story is Peter meeting Gwen at the park to hang out with her and his son.
I thought you were going to say the next part of the story is Peter getting murdered.
Yeah. The cut scene, an innuendo scene,
Yo.
you know what happens.
And like Gwen's all like, you're late, and like it's probably because of MJ, right? And he's like, no, I just overslept, and it's like, it's basically like he's having an affair,
But,
But
everyone
but
knows.
but yes,
But
but
it's
like,
a poly relationship, so at this
Right.
point, it's yeah.
but like he's there for his little dude, and he's with Gwen, and they're like, this is gonna, this is awkward, and blah blah, and then they get very close to kissing. Because like this is the first love of his life. He's
Right.
married. He has all of his memories of being happily married to this woman, but also all of the memories of being happily married to the woman that he lives in this reality with.
So he's in a hell of his own mind.
Yeah, and then Aunt May, being the Aunt May that she is and quite intuitive, just shows up at the park and like, hey, I know what you're doing, motherfucker.
Oh.
I know what you're doing. And she gave him. I think my favorite panel here is Aunt May giving his ass the stink eye.
Will you read? Will you? Oh yeah. Will you read what she says? I'm just very curious what she says.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, she says, Peter, dear, what on earth are you doing? What? What do you mean? I mean, you can't possibly go on like this. You're smart enough to know that it isn't fair to Gwen or MJ, or even to yourself in the end. I hate to say this because I love both of them as much as you do, but you need to make a choice.
Okay. She putting the smack down.
Yeah.
All right.
But she said it was stank face. And I love
She
it.
was stank face smackdown.
Fresh years of frustration.
You know?
I think if we're moving around in time, but frustrated.
I mean, if this was written a couple of years ago, I mean, it's like it's not a bad situation if they're all okay with it and they're all adults.
Nobody's okay with this.
Nobody's okay with it.
Nah,
Nobody's okay with this yet.
this is yeah.
At
But
least
you know-
they didn't go with the male fantasy.
All right, he's like,
Scenario.
I got 2 wives.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
That
Yeah.
kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
No, don't go back to that was like 2017. Comics.
Oh.
Wait, come? That's still happening, Ken.
Oh man,
Who does he think he is, Conan?
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. I've existed in a different world for a little while. Thank
so,
you.
while he's at the park, here's something interesting. Aunt May gets a call from MJ and was like, I've been trying to reach Peter all day. He left his phone at home, blah, blah, blah. He goes home, and it turns out that MJ has been attacked by the Green Goblin.
Oh.
So she's like, and Peter's like, that's impossible. Norman's in jail again. Like he was here. You can see their apartment is disheveled. Some things have gone down. But he's like, okay, I'll go investigate. And so he goes to the prison, and he verifies that Norman Osborn is still in jail. He's right there, laying down on his mat.
Visual verification. He's in his cell.
And then, I guess because, you need to move forward in the story. They go to, I guess, what could be months later, and it's their anniversary. And I mean, Mary Jane and Peter, not Gwen, and whatever.
Sure.
And so he's trying to make it up to MJ at this point because he's like, yeah, I've been fucking up. So,
Does she just yell at him and say, "You think?"
This is the all right. This is the
So-
third verse.
he rents this special cabin out in the woods somewhere, right? And she's like, "Oh, is this the anniversary gift? This is so sweet." And he's like, "Yeah, that's part of it, but more is the gift that's on the table for you." And he's like, "Go get it," And she goes to open this box, and it's a torn up, crumpled up Spider-Man costume. And so she's like, "What the fuck is this?" And she turns around, and there's Peter dressed as the Green Goblin.
Oh, awesome!
Oh.
I kind of dig that.
That's scary, man.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. Oh, it gets a little worse.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Surprise,"
Oh.
And she's like, "Wait," she's like,
Not funny.
And he's like, she's running now at this point. She's like, "What are you doing?" Like, I don't want to be murdered.
You do say that strangely when you're about to be murdered. I don't want to be murdered. I'm just letting
clarify.
you know.
It's not
I
my
didn't ask for
preference
this.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote this second story did a really brilliant thing too. Peter, as the Green Goblin, has now trapped MJ with spiderwebs as the Green Goblin on the wall, and he's monologuing to her, and he says, "This is the house that I actually woke up in when I came back from the other reality,
Oh.
because it was the house that him and Gwen lived in."
Oh.
That's pretty awesome.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
And so, at this point, he's
Little
trapped
memento
her.
in there.
He's
Yeah.
trapped her, and now he's got the Goblin glider, getting ready to smash her against the wall. And as he's getting ready to set it off, he passes himself in a mirror and sees his own face, and then kind of has a moment of clarity and was like, "What the fuck am I doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as the glider's getting ready to smash Mary Jane, he saves her at the last moment and jumps in front of it, and it kills him.
Cool. All right. I dig that.
That's not the end of the story.
Oh, no.
The end of the story
There's more.
ends with
Is that what? It's not the end of the story.
There's more.
there's more. But wait, there's more. The end of the story is actually you find out that this is all a retelling on the computer by his now teenage son,
Okay, that's cool.
talking about how his dad still managed to die a hero.
I like that.
That's really
And
cool.
it's him and Gwen. She's there, and but he's also getting ready to publish the story, and he's worried about being exposed because
Oh.
He has Spider-Man powers.
I was
and
wondering.
Everybody's going to know that his dad is Spider-Man.
Okay.
Wait,
Oh.
Right on.
is it for the Daily Bugle and is Ben Yorick?
No, it doesn't
Man,
say.
it doesn't go that far. That's
No.
that's the worst.
But that's it.
That's awesome.
One that extra step.
I want
right?
that extra step.
It gave us a lot. That one volume, 2 stories. Sean, just there's a lot there. I mean,
I like it.
I feel as far as the depth.
It's a very
We'll start with the first 3 stories we got, but Conan feels very paltry given some of these. This feels kind of heavy,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I think that's why I chose this one because, like I said, the original House of M storyline with Spider-Man was heavy to begin with.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, anytime, I think, maybe it's my assumption, but I feel like every really solid, memorable Spider-Man story ends with some kind of mental trauma,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he's always put through the ringer to some degree. He's always just kind of like, there's definitely fun stories like Spider Island was cool, but it wasn't,
Right.
People aren't
it
still
wasn't
talking about that.
it wasn't like the Last Hunt, Craven's Last
Oof.
Hunt, which was like the penultimate Spider-Man story when I was a kid.
That's a good one.
Badass
It's one of the
story, yeah.
best
Yeah.
comics out there, and every time Craven comes back nowadays, I'm always like, I can't. He's not there. That whole J.M. DeMatteis story is the thing, and I can't deal with this canon. But I feel like that's my point. I feel like that's the crux of it's cool that last story I really dug. I like the ending with the kid writing about it. I think that's cool. And the whole reality bending idea of like, if you're a hero, would you do this?
Yeah.
If you're, or not even a hero, would you do this?
Right.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say that brings up. Wasn't there Mark Millar, Marvel 1985, where it was like Marvel, like this kid brought in. He was either transported to the Marvel universe, or he brought the Marvel universe from the comics alive, and it was like this big morality thing.
That sounds familiar. I don't remember it.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't it have Alex Ross?
I think Alice Rocks did at least the covers.
The cover, yeah. Gosh, yeah, there is a lot of that. I mean, honestly, I do like any of the Marvel stories that will go a little bit further to make you, that find a way to tie it to an actual reality
Something that you can relate
issue.
Something you can relate to, and Marvel's really good at that.
Yeah.
That's always been the thing. So yeah, that's the thing. I started.
There you go.
On
There you go.
The thing.
Always been the Ben Grimm.
So I really want this to be an open forum for all the stories that we've encountered, but we got to get into story number 3, not story number 3, but issue number 3 with an intro. Who do we have up next on the What If?
I'll go.
We got Martin up next,
All
and
right.
very excited. I will say before Martin speaks that his issue, I had a very visceral reaction just to the proposition that was placed in front of me. So without revealing anything, I want to tell you I had a visceral reaction to just the title of your issue. Go ahead, Martin.
So my issue is, what if the Punisher became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Oh my God.
And I mean, anybody who knows Frank Castle, like, you can probably guess where this is gonna go. Not well for S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah. So, yeah, we start off, basically, Frank Castle's telling his story of, it's that almost like normal action thing where he starts saying, oh, I'm the Punisher, I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always this flying. The first panel is him flying in this almost banshee costume with a desert eagle in his hand, and he's like, I joined up with S.H.I.E.L.D., but I didn't always used to be with S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
And I used to have to hunt bad guys, and you never say bad guys in this issue. He always calls them hoods.
Hoods?
Hoods.
No, let's pause. He calls them hoods?
Yeah.
Like, Okay.
Like,
Just hoods, like a
Hoods.
term is a new term maybe to.
Yeah, I'll read some of his terrific dialogue from this. Yes.
Yeah, give us a couple snippets as you go
Oh,
along.
as we go along.
Hoods.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. I
Hoods.
mean, so this was actually written by Chuck Dixon.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Robin
Nightwing.
fame?
Nightwing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get to the next page. It's a big double spread of him flying, and you realize it's this Hydra Island that he calls it. The big enchilada.
Hydra.
I found it,
The big
and I'm gonna take it down.
The big enchilada.
The big enchilada.
There's no ambiguity of whether this is the target here.
so what's the bean and cheese of this problem? What's the...
So he goes into his past, talking about, I used to just be a vigilante, shooting up hoods, but I didn't wear a mask.
Shooting up some hoods.
And he realizes,
Oh, my
sooner or
God.
later, this whole vigilante, me just killing hoods, is not going to last forever. And a smoke bomb jumps in, gets thrown through this window, and he gets knocked out. Which, to me, I'm just like, that seems like the laziest way to take out the Punisher. But, it does it.
This
Whack.
whole time, we just needed this
He uses the smoke bomb. Well, Frank wakes up, and there's some weird editorial issues. The first bubble on this page of Frank Castle waking up says, "I ain't Saint Peter to answer your first question."
Okay.
And Punisher says, "My throat hurts from the gas, so I'm still alive. Let's cut to the bone." And then we realize
Boy.
this is Nick Fury.
Oh.
Okay.
We've been watching you. We is S.H.I.E.L.D. And frankly, Castle, you remind me of me. Which I don't see, but,
Oh.
Frankly Castle?
Back
Frankly
in my day, I
Castle?
used to murder on the streets.
Right?
Did he say, actually, wait.
Wait, hold up.
Yeah, I think
Did he
you
say
caught that.
Frankly Castle? Like
Yeah, frankly, space, or comma, Castle.
That
Frankly, Castle.
Mr. Dixon, sir,
That's a
you're
summer issue.
on trial.
Oh, no, it's good. It gets
Editors
No, no,
on
no.
vacation. That's a summer
This-
issue. Look up that date. That thing's freaking July. If I
have-
ever saw an issue that was
I'll,
released in
I'll
July.
get to the year.
Was it the
in a
editor in
second.
chief month?
They were all on vacation.
Assistant editors month?
Nobody looked at that thing. Sorry.
Yeah, so he just
No,
so
I
basically, as Nick Fury does, he gives Frank a choice. You either join up with S.H.I.E.L.D. and do as I say, and you get to take down the top of the top bad guys.
Yeah.
I'll give you your own team. You can have all the weapons you want, but you have to follow my rules. And for some reason, Nick Fury thinks that's going to work out in his favor. This is Frank Castle we're talking about.
So, like, once you kick the boat out into the lake, it's going to go wherever you thought it would
Right,
go. No
right.
problem.
He's
I
like-
got you started. Have fun. Report back.
We've been watching you, Castle. We haven't really been paying attention.
Watch.
Yeah. So he explains to him, and he says, basically, we get him still explaining this for 2 pages, what's going to happen. And you get down towards the bottom, and I love this. Nick Fury says, "Let me put it to you this way, pal. You join up, and you get total immunity for everything you've done. You pass this on, and it's life sentence, and in a federal lockup." Now, if I know anything about Frank Castle, he can get out of the federal lockup. So that doesn't seem like that much of a threat. And
Right.
then this nice little editor thing happens. "And I'll make sure it's hard time. You capiche?"
All right, now we're getting into my territory.
You capiche?
Now, I'm from the West Coast.
Yeah.
But I know that it's not usually you capiche.
It's just
Capiche?
I'll show you what it is.
Capiche? Right?
I go up to you. You're having trouble understanding me, right?
Yeah.
Hey, knock it off. Chill out, buddy. Capiche?
That's it.
That's it?
No,
it's
but to Colonel Nick Fury.
Gesticulation and
You
the word.
Capiche? Do you capiche it?
Yeah.
Are you capitiating what
It's
I'm putting across?
It's no. Hey, let's not devalue this. This is Descartes. This is Descartes. I think, therefore I am stuff. This is
Yes.
good. Do I capiche? I capiche, therefore I am.
I think it's more like a la carte. I think it's more like a la carte with the English language and the other languages that they decided to throw in there and say.
Also,
I think
That's
it's a
all
little
it
bit
is.
more of
That's all it is.
smorgasbord, if you
Also,
will.
I know that I'm reading Nick Fury with a New York accent, but I never picture him that way. Even when I was reading this in my head,
the
was
first Nick Fury stuff.
Yeah?
Totally a New Yorker. Oh yeah, 100%.
See, in my head, it's always that Amazing Spider-Man when he was on the animated series.
cartoon series,
Yeah,
yeah.
when he sounded like the head of the ex-head of the NRA from Planet of the Apes.
Heston.
Charlton Heston.
Heston.
That's how we remember
I
it.
love
That's
that
how.
pack.
I didn't realize the NRA was in the Planet of the Apes.
Well,
I understood that thread, and I think we all did.
Yeah, I did.
It made total
I did.
sense to me, but anyway, yes.
but that's the voice in my head.
yeah.
But anyway, so Frank Castle joins up, and he's ecstatic. He gets to blow shit up. He gets to do whatever he wants. He gets his own. He gets to choose his own team. He starts, doing his punishing thing. And we get on to probably page 6 or 7, and I actually had to ask our good friend Ethan here who the hell this villain was, because I did not recognize
Okay.
him. But I'm trying to oh yes, on the same page, I had to pause and go, did I just read what I read?
Okay. One of those pages.
One of those pages.
Tell me.
And it says, and this was after Nick Fury or Frank joins up. It says Fury was right about the ordinance. It was everything I'd ever wanted and then some. All the toys.
Okay.
No more taking down street corner mooks, holding a nickel and dime stashes.
Oh.
And I was like, what did I just read?
I'm gonna explain this to you after I have some insight on this dialogue for you.
Okay. And then, so I saw that and I was like, when was this written? So I go to the front of the page. Nice little credit section. What If, Volume 2, number 57, January 1994.
Yeah.
94.
94. Yeah, they're putting mooks
Mooks and hoods.
and hoods in a Marvel comic.
I'm gonna explain that
Multiple times.
I know the answer to that.
Yeah?
Yeah. We'll get there.
Okay.
I want him to finish with it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and so I asked our good friend Neil, who is this villain? And the villain turns out to be the Yellow Claw that he's taking down.
Oh.
I've never heard of this villain. I thought it was the Mandarin or maybe Fu Manchu.
Yellow Claw.
Man, yeah. I'm not surprised by that. Okay, look. That's mad racist.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, what's weird about it is the real questionable part can be creating like a one-off reservoir of stereotype or name. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I'm not gonna taint a character that's around now because I know this is iffy or something. I'm gonna attribute it to like this one right here and like ramp it up for irony, like that kind of weird.
Yeah.
I'm grasping without the full knowledge of the material, but we'll get back into
So
it.
yes, so basically, Frank Castle finds this villain, and he tracks him down, and he's saying, he's talking to himself over this mission. He's like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and he blows the guy away. And he's got this really cool. Most of these panels in this comic are very constrained. This was early '90s, so they didn't really break out of the corners very often.
Yeah.
But this one panel has the blackened blood splattered across outside of the borders, which I thought was a very interesting choice.
wow.
That is. I like it right off the bat. You're thinking that, at least in this point, it looks like an expressionist splatter paint. It's our this is Punisher, and we've tapped into art, at least momentarily, right?
So, yeah. And so they get back, and Nick Fury's pissed because he just killed a guy he was going to question, find out where the bigger guy was or what his plans were for the evil doings.
Yep.
But he's Frank Castle. You knew what you were signing up.
You don't get nuance.
No.
How many times do I have to explain this to people?
What I really like...
I'm shocked.
Again, we've been watching you.
Yeah, we know what you do. We think we can change you.
Your behavior doesn't vary, nor has it ever varied.
Right. Something I did notice, though, too, his entire team, Frank Castle, his entire team of squads all have the Punisher logo all over their uniform. And on the cover, you even see them, like, walking into a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier somewhat. And each one of them, on top of the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo on their shoulder, it says Punisher. Not Punishers, just Punisher. So he even his team gets their own code name after him.
Nah.
Yet they still need to follow S.H.I.E.L.D's little protocols.
I mean, if I was holding on to the story, I'm breaking off right there. It just doesn't work for me. I'm jumping.
Right.
I'm jumping there, but I'll carry it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Nick Fury says, no, you can't do this. You know, none of this. You're gonna do this now. You know, he's taking him off his team. You screw up one more time, you're off the force. You know, sort of things, right?
There's some bazookas.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Crossing our fingers.
he's like, you're not following us. You're just being a follower now. So they go to Madripoor to take down some other high profile bad guys, and one of his sidekicks, which not really a sidekick, I guess is second in command maybe. He's called Quartermain. Is that a
Quartermain?
No, I'm not familiar.
I didn't recognize it either.
I might be thinking of something else, but I picked up on something.
So they drop in silently. They arrest or contain all of these bad guys. They're all accounted for, and Punisher Frank Castle just goes, "Hey, look, I'm following orders. Everyone's here and accounted for, but that coke and all the drugs and everything that's behind us, Fury didn't say anything about keeping that, so he bombs it." Cool. Okay, so he's trying to do his own little thing, right? And then all of a sudden he goes, I hear screaming. And he goes over to a container. Slavers. These mooks are slavers.
Wow.
So wait, in the container,
In the container there were women. And Nick and Frank Castle didn't know that. So he was burning because nobody told him.
Right.
And the slavers?
So that's the choice the words he uses. So
Yes.
he's blown up the stockpile that he thought was just drugs.
Right.
Turns out there's people in there, mostly women.
And they're surviving.
Oh,
so
okay.
he saves them. He heard them screaming in the containers. He saved them. And I love how one of his military buddies calls him Skipper like 2 times in here. I'm like, who calls Frank Castle Skipper?
That guy?
He's not gonna live much longer.
What if universe, I guess.
Yeah. So Quartermain gets mad. He's like, you can't do this. Like, it's not just your butt that's gonna get it. It's everyone. Blah blah. And Frank Castle's carrying one of these people, and he hands it off. You know, Quartermain says, you know, this is espionage, Castle. It's not cops and robbers. You have to see the big picture. Sometimes you have to deal with the bottom feeders to catch the sharks. And I like this one scene. Frank Castle was carrying this you know, sex slave essentially. They're not going to say that in the comic, but it's a sex slave. Hands it off to Quartermain and just goes, "Explain that to her," and walks off.
Yeah.
So of course,
Abdicating
Fury's
any
pissed.
moral responsibility whatsoever.
Fury's pissed, and he says, "You know what? You're done. This is it. You're on like guard duty." So Dum Dum Dugan is now the leader of this team, and takes him to supposedly Hydra's big base.
Yeah, the whole enchilada.
The whole enchilada.
With sour cream.
Well, they stepped into a trap, and everyone dies except for Frank, even Dum Dum.
Damn.
Dugan's dead. Everyone assumes Frank's dead. 3 weeks later, he shows back up in New York, and visits his old buddy Micro, who's going to hack into S.H.I.E.L.D. and get him some information. So Frank then... So apparently, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s HR department isn't very good, because after 3 weeks of being MIA, they didn't just erase his credentials. So he gets into a S.H.I.E.L.D. complex.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem. And takes a jet.
Sure.
No problem.
No additional security
No
level.
additional. No. He takes this jet, and he's going to go to the Hydra Island, the big enchilada. So he gets there, he lands, he jumps out with his banshee-looking flight suit, shooting down Hydra agents as he's on the way down. He gets down and he just starts blasting everyone away, and he knows this is it. This is, I have lived and I lived and died as I wanted. I have only one regret. That I will never see my wife and children again. But they're together, and that's enough. The thunder rumbles from far below. It's over now. It's finally all. And this is after he decided, I'm just going to drop a bomb into their nuclear power plant on Hydra Island and blow the whole thing to smithereens.
So, did his wife and kid never get killed in this?
No, they
version?
died. He was the Punisher for a while.
Okay.
And and Nick Fury's just like, you know what, that guy that doesn't follow any rules, I want that guy to follow my rules.
Well, I want to jump in and say right now, my gut reaction to this issue has been validated by everything Martin said right here. No, I said no to the beginning.
Yeah.
And I hung on. There's some point in there I said no more. I hung in there and it's fine. I said no more. But from the beginning I said no. I said no from the beginning.
It doesn't work.
None of this works.
No.
So, real quick, I want to tap into something that some of y'all may or may not know. And this might be good for the listeners. So, when Martin said that this was written by Chuck Dixon, it all became clear to me. Because that dude is an asshole. Chuck Dixon, who, like you said, also wrote Nightwing. If you go back and read Nightwing around the 90s, you will see a lot of mentions of hoods and mooks. And let me tell you, all of the villains in Chuck Dixon books are black. Or of some person of color, or let's just say, when initially reading that, it would be easy. You could easily make the assumption that, like, oh, this is written by a racist motherfucker, right?
Reading this, I thought this was like the 70s.
Well, okay.
And I thought, okay, it's a little, it's not okay now, but they got away with everything was different. Things were different. They weren't okay.
You were shocked by 1994.
But when I saw 1994, I was like, are you serious?
Well, yeah, because that's who he was in 1994. And let me tell you this: he didn't stop being that guy. And let me here's the added perspective to that. Chuck Dixon is a member of Comicsgate. Right.
That's all you had to say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was like putting that all together. I was like, oh, he's always been a piece of shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this comic reminded me, like, I saw it and I was like, this can't be good. Like, obviously this isn't going to work out. One, because it was only one shot, and if it actually worked out, there would have been more than one. And then two, I've previously read the What If Frank Castle became Captain America, and that didn't work out either.
Why would it? Why?
No.
It was basically it was an alternate alternate origin of Nuke, essentially.
Sure.
The biggest problem I've had with Punisher, and I think anybody who tries to write for Punisher has a fundamental problem. And the fundamental problem is that the approach, like, humans are sophisticated thinkers. It is that place contains badness,
right?
Blow up badness is the thought process. Badness is there. So, like, drugs are manufactured. Well, like, 45 people, like, trying to, like, make a living, like, blown up. Everything, like, drugs are blown up. Like, it's just this moral negation of something.
Well, I think, so for me, the Punisher has always been about, and you're going to laugh when I say this because it's so obvious, mental instability. it's always been about his trauma. It's always been about his
PTSD.
His PTSD, and the show, the Punisher series, actually, I mean, the first season. I haven't watched the second season. The first season really dealt with that in interesting ways. Like that is what the show became about. It didn't become about here's this guy who's cool because he uses an M16 to blow up a bunch of cocaine.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Skull, man.
No, and it was a lot more in depth. It was a lot more interesting than what Chuck Dixon wrote.
And speaking of the show,
It doesn't always happen, but
I probably would have seen that if I could get past every episode reminding me that his wife and kid were killed every 30 seconds in that first season.
I mean, that's part of the trauma, and I get that. I get that as like we don't need Spider-Man's origin again. We don't need Batman's origin again.
I can deal with a Spider-Man or Batman origin once every 4 years, but every hour.
Well, I mean,
it's a different story.
But think about it though. That was the whole point because like that never left him.
Yeah.
That's his whole trauma case.
Yeah.
And so it would be the thing on the forefront of his mind every minute of every day.
Yeah.
With the thing is where I have with the Punisher stuff, and like I said, that's tough sledding. Martin had Hercules task here. I mean, we could have fun. We could bounce around. We could work off things. This is you sticking to getting to
Ethan's, so.
And we haven't heard Ethan's. But the one thing I wanted to say about the Punisher bit is, I believe just from things that I've heard, and I'm suspicious that the racism is even more pernicious in ways that I started to hint and hearing that thing. And also, you can't escape the fact right now that the only superhero logo you would see in the January 6th riots would be Punisher friggin' logos, and there's some sort of racist, even if you don't buy into the co-optation or something like that, there's something racist, there's something nihilistic and nasty.
Because they bought into the idea of the cool guy with the M16 and the cool skull motif.
I mean, distributing justice.
Yeah, well, I mean, distributing their version of.
Right, and there's a whole article I read about, you know, the of course I forget his name right now, Kyle, the American Sniper.
Is it written? I forget the name, the last name.
Yeah, I can't remember the right name.
No, yeah.
Kyle something. But I mean, how he kind of him and his squad like really took the Punisher logo, and then it just spread like wildfire over in Iraq and Afghanistan during the war. It's still going on. And then of course like the cops saw it and they've just adopted it, and it always makes me chuckle at first, and then it frustrates me when I see the amalgamation imagery of the very distinctive Punisher logo mixed with the Blue Lives Matter American flag. And I just like, you really don't understand it. You really don't. Like, I don't care. Like, Punisher, yeah, he's cool. He's not a hero. He's an 80s action, movie that never grew up.
Right.
And it tells me somebody that literally just saw tough guy with gun blows up thing that says it was bad. That's the surface layer.
That's
of
the
what
moral
they get.
universe, and the rest of us are like we just simply inhabit. Conan was trying to grasp with more petty moral issues that outweighed him. Outweighed him incredibly, but highly problematic. Punisher. The premise was very difficult for him to get in 1994.
Yeah.
Always a complicated area for time for comics too. If you think about it, in the 90s, right? When I was a kid, and you didn't have as much of the multiverses, I think there was a credibility question, and I think the fact that they played on it is just a way to play on it. It seemed fake, and it just seemed like a simple storytelling. It's like wondering if you took this crossroad rather than that crossroad. And I don't know now if it's whether the consumers
the fans
Right.
and thinking about canon and thinking about a properly set up multiverse, or if there are more than one multiverse, how they react.
But
Martin,
here's
yeah.
the funny thing about that. Like you mentioned this. I don't know if it was recorded or not, but you mentioned like as a kid, you just mentioned it.
Yeah, we're
How
rolling. We're back
how
in.
you discounted it, like because there was no like real multiverse or like anything like that. But the early what ifs all started with the Watcher being like, in this version of Earth,
Yeah.
this happens, and they don't do that anymore. They never. I've yet to see the Watcher show up and go, "Hey, I know you know how this happens in the 616. Here's what would have happened."
They brought it back in some of the later ones.
Did
So
they?
The Watcher?
in like the ones from like about 5 years ago. The Watcher.
Okay,
shows back up. Yeah.
so in the when probably around the Secret Wars 3.0,
You know, all
or
that
whatever,
stuff, yeah.
The Watcher, and for the listeners, and we're deep into this, but the Watcher is to sees past, future, possibility, cosmic, godlike
Well, I mean,
type of creature.
if people are watching
Marvel Universe.
Loki, I mean, what's the difference between the Watchers and
The Time Bureau?
And the Time Bureau.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that's weird.
That's a whole other topic.
All right,
man.
let's stop digging that.
Yeah. Let's put Ethan on.
Let's put Ethan on. Ethan, we have gone through some trails here, a lot of material. Very happy, Ethan Slayton, guest of Something Rather Than Nothing in the early shows, and you can see that the show has really moved to high quality, upper academic, cutting edge research.
Then what the fuck am I doing here?
And we were trying to cut deep into what if questions on Something Rather Than Nothing. You have a what if question for us, and we're ready. I think we're ready.
I have a what if question. It's what if Shang Chi, Master of Kung Fu, fought on the side of Fu Manchu? So initially I picked this up because I'm like, I love Shang Chi. I've loved Shang Chi since I was a kid. It's one of the first comics my dad got for me. Really cool, right? I have no idea why this what if question exists because I don't know a lot about Fu Manchu until I read this issue.
Okay.
And that was kind of the cool part. It's got the movie coming up and everything, and so it kind of informed me a little bit. The Shang-Chi movie coming up, yeah. And so essentially, the whole deal is that Fu Manchu, as problematic as a character as it is, I'm going to say that, he is Shang-Chi's father.
Okay.
So, just knowing that, it kind of makes me go, oh, okay. So this question is a little bit more interesting. And then it dives into explaining how Shang-Chi started, and Shang-Chi started as a member of Fu Manchu's warriors, but he always questioned his dad. Because his dad says, okay, I need you... So since the 1900s, since the Boxer Rebellion, Fu Manchu had a group of warriors that were going up against the Allied forces. So America, Britain, Russia, I think even Japan, maybe, fought against China. And
yeah,
so
imperial issues between Britain and China. Yes.
Right. So, and Fu Manchu in this fictional history is supposed to have been a part of that, and he's mad that the Allies won, and so his goal is to turn it around and then destroy the Allies. And so his way of fooling his son, fooling Shang-Chi into killing a general for him, which happens in the issue, is essentially to say, well, it's the Buddhist nature, it's our nature, it's the Kung Fu way, and Shang-Chi's kind of like, I mean, you're my dad, this is all about honor, so it's all heavily Asian coded in a lot of ways, and it's problematic in a way that it's written by, I'm assuming. So the writer being Doug Moench.
Yep.
Yeah. is a white individual. So
Hey,
he's
capiche.
yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you
So-
capiche.
So there's some problems already. But the story is that Shang Chi was going to go. He does go, and he goes to America. Goes to England to assassinate this old general who is an old foe of Fu Manchu's. And he stumbles onto this other general who gets him to stop, gets him to think about what he's going to do, because, he says, "Why are you doing this?" And Shang-Chi says, "Because this is evil. I'm destroying evil for the greater good." And the bodyguard general says, "Evil? I'll tell you about evil," and kind of talks about his dad, about Shang-Chi's dad, Fu Manchu, and Fu Manchu. He says, "I'll tell you about Fu Manchu. It was 1911 when I first heard of a certain man who spoke all the civilized languages and most of the barbaric, an adept in all sciences and certain obscure arts, a man with the intellect of any 3 men of genius." The dialogue's a little monkey.
Yeah. A
A little weird.
bunched up.
A little bunched up and a little heated and a little racist, as we will say. He was ancient then, older than I am now. But by 1932, he had developed the elixir vitae, the oil of life, to prolong his vitality. If anything, he has grown younger since then. Agelessness has freed him to work toward his single goal, domination of the world, by his Siphon, a sinister secret society which includes... I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. I'm going to spell it. Dacoits, dacoits,
Okay.
Fanzigars, Thuggies, and other terrible cults. Yet he also employs spiders, rats, reptiles, as well as beautiful women as his pawns. Another problematic statement, sticking beautiful women in with the snakes, rats, and reptiles.
Wow.
Like, you guys just didn't pull any punches.
Wow.
You gotta watch where you're putting your commas, ellipses. You gotta watch the punctuation, what you're grouping together.
It's an issue. It's an issue.
It is a comic issue.
Shut up.
Oh, he went for his flank and he's been retorted.
Terrible.
So the old general says, "For 40 years I opposed him along with, I assume this is a name, Petrie, and others. Before he finally captured me, there was a guard. He used an enormous sumo who could grind an opponent's bones to paste. I was given to him." So essentially, he goes through this whole diatribe of how evil Fu Manchu is with sumo wrestlers and stuff like that, which I think is a little weird because that's Japan and sumo wrestlers are not evil.
Like, why would they even work for him?
Why would they even work for him? Exactly, thank you. So Shang-Chi is like, "Whoa, what the heck?" and goes back to Dad and says, "Dad,
Why are you so bad?
why are you so bad? I have some problems, and we're going to talk." And Fu Manchu says, "Hold up. You believe that old white man?" Says, "Know then that my initial goal," this is Fu Manchu talking to his son, "know then that my initial goal was simply the restoration of China's ancient glory until the Communist Revolution," which we talked about, the Boxer Rebellion, "and Sir Dennis Nayland Smith," who is the old man who was just talking to Shang-Chi, "destroyed much of my power. I was forced to rebuild the Siphon without Peking's backing, but after 20 years I have succeeded. Now I stand alone, the emperor of an invisible worldwide empire opposed to all organized governments, and I swear by the gods of Cathay that in my wisdom I shall destroy them this time." And Shang-Chi is kind of looking at his dad like, "Okay," and then he fucks off. He says, "Next time we meet, Dad, you and I are enemies. You're nuts. This is not a Buddhist way. This is not a Kung Fu way. I'm out." So he goes and he eventually fights his dad throughout the whole issues. And so what this issue is asking, what if he didn't switch sides? And what if he became the agent of his father, the agent that his father wanted? And so essentially what we have is now I got to hold here for a second because it's a little convoluted, just a touch.
We're back to Conan territory. The threads of the story are a little bit.
It's a little
threadbare.
A little bit threadbare
at times, and it's fine. You're in the position to patch
No,
together
totally.
for the rest of us what's happening.
So essentially, what happens is Shang-Chi actually kills the guy his dad wanted him to kill, and he escapes. And so the individual. So basically, what if Shang-Chi had departed a few crucial seconds before Waylon Smith entered that room and talked to him and said, "Your dad's actually the bad guy." And so Waylon Smith says, Petrie, old man, who is the guy who Shang-Chi was sent to kill, I failed you, but I swear on your soul, you will be avenged. And so then we have boxes all throughout that is Shang-Chi talking, saying, I return to my father's London sanctuary. He will be pleased. And he has, Shang-Chi says he succeeded in killing Petrie, but he's still troubled by the deed. And he says, I've slain the evil one in your service, Father, defying every spiritual value I have been taught. I do not understand. And his father interrupts him and says, "True, you were taught many values embodied in the sacred Tao, the sanctity of life among them. But I and my teachers shaped more than your mind and spirit. We shaped too your body, training it under the most demanding disciplines of the martial arts, forging you into a veritable living weapon, an instrument easily capable of inflicting death. Why did you not protest the contradiction then?" And Shang-Chi answers, it was in the cause of defense, not, and then his dad interrupts again, his dad's a dick. Defense, yes. But when one is attacked, the most effective defense is a like offense. And so he's kind of likening what he went through previously with the Boxer Rebellion to what Shang-Chi is dealing with. And so he's trying to kind of like manipulate his son into understanding where he was coming from, where his murderous intent was coming from.
And also weaponize him in general.
And weaponizing him 100% in general. And he continues and says, and now in my service you have slain Dr. Petrie, a servant of the most evil man in the world, a man whose many servants have slain many of those who serve me, a man, my son, who would gladly slay you. What?
What?
I don't... My son.
Yeah.
Oh, he's saying Petrie would have killed his kid. Right. That man is Sir Dennis Nayland Smith, the guy who said, your dad's a jerk. And so we have a few cut panels immediately. There's no, meanwhile, back in London, so it's immediate. We have Sir Waylon Smith talking to his group of men, and he's putting together a force to go and destroy Fu Manchu. And so we kind of go through that a little bit. There's a lot of hemming and hawing.
Some ads there soliciting child labor to sell birthday cards and shit like that.
Right.
Here 9-year-old, go out in the rain and work 15 hours for a popsicle, or
And so
skip over that.
Shang-Chi goes at his father's behest to dig up some of his old warriors that were already dead. So he's going to go grave rob. And through MI6, who are the British gentlemen, they're going to somehow their intelligence has figured out they're going to this certain graveyard, one of the magical holes of comics.
Yes, and that's not a red flag for him at all.
No. I'm gonna go dig up some dead bodies for you, Dad. Okay.
We got international intelligence going on.
Yeah.
Here. Grave digging, activity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Shang-Chi is kind of like not really in his moral best place at the moment.
All right.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Okay. So, Shang-Chi and his group of men that his father has given him to go and get these bodies out of the grave go. And meanwhile, Fu Manchu starts to create and mass produce his serum vitae, and they Jesus, there's so much stuff here, you guys. I'm so sorry.
There's a lot of. I mean, I just want to reflect that
It's
this is a
constant.
convoluted text here.
Oh,
I
man.
mean, he is analyzing. I mean, on these 2 pages, there are at least 17,
So many
20,
panels.
17, 20 panels. Well, maybe a little editorial. There,
8 panels per page.
Yeah.
All of
There's
them at
a
least
lot.
with 2 large word balloons per page. You know me. I hate reading.
you're bringing us through. You rely on the pictures. You rely on the words. Whatever. Just keep carrying us through to the promised land. We're good.
So I feel like also this is a drawn out scenario.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I
It
keep
could've been
seeing
cut down.
it could have. Oh man, this could have been a 2-issue special like Sean's.
Yeah.
So the fighting happens with the MI6 guys and Shang Chi, and the MI6 guys are losing because Shang Chi's so fast. And I apologize. This is probably going to be an editing nightmare for you, Ken. Yeah, drawn out stuff. And we get to the point where we get the bodies back to Dad. And
The bodies.
the 5 bodies back to Dad, so Dad can reanimate them
Yes, with the elixir. Or
with
what
the
have you.
elixir vitae.
With the vitamin water.
Yeah, yeah. And we have
Sugar-free,
I
0.
shouldn't gloss over that the MI6 guys have captured one of Shang-Chi's men at the graveyard site, and they're asking him for questions. They're questioning him, calling him a yellow devil.
Oh,
Yeah. So there's some stuff that it was really hard for me to continue forward with reading this, because it's like, you guys, like that was that necessary? Probably not. You know, it's just a bad note.
I want to interject real quick.
Yeah, please do.
You know what I find really interesting is that I haven't seen this with Marvel. Now, 3 of us here used to work for Things from the World,
Yeah.
comic book store here in the Pacific Northwest, and its sister company Dark Horse. Now, I came into reading comics through before I started going to comic book stores. I grabbed like 1-issue comics from our local grocery store, and basically what I got was like a random Aliens issue. Okay, so later on in life, I grabbed more Aliens, and one of the first things I grabbed was the supposedly what Aliens 3 was supposed to be. Okay?
Oh, from the movie. Yes, I
From the
remember
movie,
this
yeah.
issue. Yeah.
Okay. And I remember reading the omnibus version. Now this was not the original print. This is like 3rd or 4th print down the line.
right.
Okay.
And I remember reading it and saying, and it said, Wilkes and Gecko. And I'm like, who the fuck is Wilkes and Gecko? Later on, I became friends with some people at Dark Horse, and I asked this question. They laughed and said, well, in the reprints, they didn't want to confuse people with it being Hicks and Newt, so they just changed the names. Okay.
To Wilkes and Oh,
Okay.
okay.
But what's interesting is I bet you might be able to find issues like this printed by Marvel where they don't go back and they don't change these kind of weird, possibly challenging
Now would be the
words.
time to find out, because I can bet that they are re-releasing a lot of Shang-Chi right now.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Because
Because
right
the
now is
movie's
when you're
coming
going to be
out.
seeing it.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to go
We
and
should
see.
ask David Walker too. He's got the whole Shang-Chi collection.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
just to
Even
see,
some of the
like,
modern stuff.
Right on.
if
Right on.
they've gone back and like edited it out and like made it a little more PC.
That's
Yeah.
that's. I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been wondering that a lot, particularly when you've seen, like, one of the experiences I've had is, as I've gotten older, I've gotten away from the period of where I grew up in the '80s, and like when you grow up in a particular time, you're like, I never thought like
It's
anybody.
fine.
I never like I. It was like I didn't think it was like that bad, and
Right.
then like then you look at it, and it's like it was like really that bad, and you see
Yeah.
the date,
Yeah.
and you're surprised by the
Yeah.
date, and you're surprised by
Yeah.
that. But I think with this issue, I mean the things that plays into, it's like, it's just not innocuous when you see flus and viruses named in racialized
Right.
in the same exact way.
Yep.
Major issue. It's not because of comic book, but it's all in the mix.
Yeah.
And it's just like super. Anyways, you're trying to get through the
Oh, no.
material. You're guiding us.
It's hard to not get through this. It's hard to get through this and not stop and go, what the fuck?
What's going on basically
Right?
here?
Because
yeah. Man.
so the dead dudes come to life, and Shang-Chi says, by tomorrow, Buckingham Palace, and yes, even the imperialist queen shall be mine. England shall be mine. And Shang-Chi says, but father, this is madness. But father, this is madness. Sorry. Madness, no, but I have allowed enthusiasm to make me careless. You should never have entered this chamber, but you cannot do. Silence! You will leave here and you will remain confined to your quarters. No, father, with all due worship, I cannot go. It is not yours to question my celestial personage. He's got a little bit of a god complex.
Celestial.
Yeah.
Celestial
Yeah.
personage.
He's got a little bit of.
I don't like hanging around Sean. He goes on that celestial personage tip, and I can't get him off.
He's got a little bit of a something ego, I think, is what we were calling it.
Bring me my Vitas. You capiche?
And so his dad says one word to Shang-Chi, says, go. And Shang-Chi says, very well, father. And leaves the room and doesn't start a revolution then and realize hey, you're dealing with the sanctity of life, which is not what we talked about. This is going against the tenets of Tao. I'll just leave because you're my dad, even though you're doing stupid shit. So they go through this whole kind of interesting. The MI6 is getting information of where things are going to be happening at the Buckingham Palace. They're getting that information from the guy they're questioning, and so Shang-Chi then at some point he says, "Wait, no, what the hell?"
He said, wait.
Oh, Shang-Chi. Okay, so they lock Shang-Chi up. Shang-Chi breaks out of his cage and realizes what his father's doing, and then they go to take Buckingham Palace. MI6 is there to stop them, and as MI6 rolls up, they notice that this big van is rolled up, and they let loose this group of undead creatures, men riding on giant lizards.
What?
Yeah, giant lizards.
Where are they being deposited? I just want to make sure.
They're being deposited at Buckingham Palace so that they can take over Buckingham Palace.
It's a wild scene, listeners. As Ethan's describing it, as outlandish as it sounds.
I
it
couldn't really
depicted.
summarize.
I have verified it was depicted in the comic.
Yeah.
It is verifiable.
Chicken lizards.
They do look like chicken lizards. The chizards. The lickens? No. No. Anyway, so they go and fight, and they have a fight. They shoot, and they fight, and Shang-Chi shows up, and he gets into the fight. He wants to stop his dad. Blam pow, guns, swords, kicking, hitting. Really cool art, actually. Really good
I do
kung
enjoy
fu
the art of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
issue.
it's really fun, actually. And Shang-Chi freaks out when actually one of the MI6 guys kills one of the undead guys, and the MI6 guy who Shang-Chi punches after the flamethrowers, one of the brought back to life guys says, "What's with him? I saved his life too." And one of the other MI6 guys says, "Yeah, whose side is he on?" And there's a whole diatribe that goes on with Shang-Chi, and he retorts and basically states eventually, it was life. It might not have been their original life, but it was life, and you took it, and you didn't have the right to take it, just as my dad didn't have the right to give it. And so it's kind of an interesting, it makes Shang-Chi, he's going to obey his tenets no matter what. And I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that was kind of interesting. So we actually, I'm gonna.
Is Danette in this issue?
No. But At this point, Shang-Chi leaves, and he's not going to be with MI6, and he's not going to be with his dad. And in the original comics, that's a big deal because he does end up being with MI6 for a while.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting book, and I thought it was kind of interesting because it actually had the character of Shang-Chi with some moral...
Was that a Star Trek movie ad at the bottom? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Star Trek, the motion picture?
23rd Odyssey now. Star Trek, the motion picture.
Ad.
Yeah.
The Star Trek
So 78.
movie.
This was in 78.
Oh, same year.
Or 79. I was
year after Conan.
Yeah, I was 8 years old when that was published. And I actually, like, the story is very convoluted and all over the board. Supremely convoluted.
Yeah.
But I liked Shang-Chi's characterization. I liked that eventually, like, so what if he did... So really, if he did fight on the side of Fu Manchu, nothing really bad would have happened. He would have become Shang-Chi, the Shang-Chi that we know nowadays.
Which,
You just would have taken a little longer.
yeah,
Yeah.
Those are always to me. Those are always the boring what ifs.
It's kind of boring.
It's just like, hey, guess what? If they did this other thing, the same outcome would happen.
Right.
They
Right.
don't go anywhere.
No, 100%.
I want the ripples to blow up everything, not
But
like the same thing that happened.
The thing that I thought was cool was the reason I wanted, and it kind of like made me excited to do it for the podcast is because we got the movie coming up, and a lot of people don't know who Shang-Chi is.
Yeah,
And this actually kind of informed me who he is and why he does what he does. And I thought that was cool. And then so I did a deep dive earlier today, and I went through and I read the 2020 5-issue limited series that is now not only written by an Asian writer, drawn by an Asian artist,
Yep.
and it's really, really good. And a lot of what had happened in this issue happens throughout that 5-issue miniseries. And so they're giving credence to it, but they do not call Fu Manchu. They call him Zhang Zhu, if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah.
Because, number one, Fu Manchu, being an evil Asian emperor, is racist.
Yeah.
And also, Marvel lost the rights to the pulp character of Fu Manchu. I keep saying Pulp Fiction because, anyway. So they changed that. So they took a lot of the racism out of it, but they didn't not talk about it. In Shang-Chi's estimation, as a worker in a shop, I think in San Francisco, or I can't quite remember, but it was really interesting. And it shows that his character is evolving, and people are not only changing stories because the society is changing with woke culture and everything, but that they're making the character better. They're making him a bit more interesting, and so our stories that we cherish, that we enjoy, that we talked about, are becoming stronger and better.
Yeah. I mean, because they're actually putting some effort into it.
Some thought, yeah.
A lot of the old stories like this that thrive on the derivative of stereotypes is not writing at all. It's just going with like what's already being passed around and lazy.
It's lazy, yes. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Well, there's no disruption of the culture you might be participating in. So, Ethan, thank you for that issue. One thing I wanted to ask about it, though, before we leave it, is I'm not as familiar. It seemed you're referring to like spy elements. So how much is that part of the background and part of the narrative?
I think it's a large part of the earlier Shang-Chi stuff. The MI6 characters do come into play a lot. There's a lot of characters in here that I didn't mention, but they also bring back into the current Shang-Chi stuff. Like he is in the current Shang-Chi stuff, he is still dealing with MI6.
Which, given the year that this came out, and I was just looking this up, and I'm flipping through to try and to see if this character shows up. Apparently, back in the day of the comics, Marvel published James Bond comics for a while. And, of course, in my head, if somebody mentions MI6, that's where my mind goes. There has to be some especially if you're talking Marvel, where it's like, well, you could have just done S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, why does it have to be MI6?
Right.
So I was just looking up to see if there was any sort of crossover. And apparently, in Giant Size Masters of Kung Fu #3, implies that James Bond may be the father of Clive Renston, an MI6 agent with a 00 license to kill. So I was trying to figure out if Clive was in this issue. And I'm not seeing any names mentioned with the MI6 agents, but I don't know. Given the time frame, I was like, I'm sure that I'm sure there's some sort of, because apparently James Bond has shown up in the Marvel comics. In the MC.
I'm unfamiliar with
I'll have to look that
I'm
up.
fascinated by that. I mean, I just watched.
Yeah, weird.
I did just watch a VHS copy of Moonraker, and that was not an easy path. And I feel bad for bringing it up right now.
No, I know exactly.
Yeah.
What you're
Okay.
talking about.
All right. So we've been doing the What If episode of Something Rather Than Nothing. Absolutely epic. Gonna open it up one more time here. Final comments from the guest. I am not gonna try to neatly summarize the journey that we have been upon. That would take some time in of itself, but what I wanted to do is open up the microphone to each of the guests, just like parting words, or like, I was on the couch last night, saw this on TV, it was the coolest thing ever, I need to tell you about it. We're gonna start with good friend Sean Wynn, kind of taking us out from your perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
From my perspective, as Martin knows, I actually collect what ifs because I love alternate reality stories. In fact, if it's like What If is the Marvel brand of it, but I also collect the DC Elseworlds versions of these stories too. So anything like that, I'm always grabbing. So this was actually a joy for me. But relative to my actual life, the question, what if? This was a nice reminder, hearing these stories and reading them and all that, that I actually try to embody and live my life by not asking myself this question. And what I mean by that is, if I have the means and the opportunity, I don't go, well, what if I do this? I just do it. And then whether the consequences are good or bad, I'm going to take that and then evolve from that and learn from that. It's actually how I ended up here in Portland. Instead of staying in Chicago, at one point I asked myself, well, what if I move someplace else? And to see what it's like to live someplace else. And then I just said, fuck it, and did it. No job, a little bit of savings, just was like, I'm never going to find out if I don't do it. Because I had enough what ifs in my past that I was upset by that I just never want to experience that again. I'd rather just go for it.
Do. Act, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for sharing that.
Martin. How am I supposed to follow
that? Dude.
Thanks, man.
My bad, man. Sorry.
No, this was super awesome. I do also like reading the what ifs and the Elseworlds, and some of my favorite stories were in comics are Elseworlds, what ifs, spin-offs that end up being canon sometimes. No, this was super pleasurable to sift through and find all of these extra what ifs that I didn't know existed, trying to find one that I thought would fit. And yeah, mine, Punisher as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out exactly as I thought it was. He was just going to do the same thing that Punisher does, unfortunately.
That's true.
Yeah, that was
Punisher gonna punish.
That was what we saw, and thank you, Martin. His intro to the show. I don't know what that's going to mean to him. That's his own path and narrative after this episode to figure out what occurred over the last couple hours. Ethan, Something Rather Than Nothing, What If episode, thoughts on What If or life or what have you.
So, Sean, just kind of piggybacking on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know me. You know me. You know me.
Yep. We all do.
I was pointing to everybody. You don't know me. But you can't see me. No, I'm sorry. I'll take that out.
Oh, God.
When I was a kid, I always wondered, where would I be at if I learned guitar, if I learned bass now? And I stopped what-ifing myself and started playing, and ended up playing in a band and doing some recordings. And it was just, because I'd always liked music. And same thing. I don't want to live in Vermont my entire life. I want to see what else is out there, and made that decision, and just do. And I agree with that. And I think the what if stuff is an interesting question because the stuff has already gone forward. It's already out there. It's not going to change. But what if we change it? And I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting in life, in a large way. And I think it's kind of fun to think about. I think it's a dangerous rabbit hole sometimes, but and also I got to learn about, I got to relearn about one of the characters that got me into comics, Shang Chi. That's really cool, So thank you for this.
And you ended up with an illicit copy of The Red Room by Ed Piskor.
Yeah, I did. I did.
And if you are listening, if you know what that means, he is going away with a gift. I did remember, and unfortunately for Martin, I did remember that each guest has to answer 2 major questions to the show. I just remembered that Martin has to answer 2 questions, and he will be prompted as such. What is art, and why is there something rather than nothing? What is art?
What is art? It's expression. Good or bad, evil or not good, you like it or you don't. Art is expression.
Sweet.
All right.
Yeah.
And what about the something? The why is there
something
why
rather than
why
nothing?
why is there something rather than nothing?
Oh, I'm trying to think of some poetic thing, but why not? There has to be something. If there's nothing, then there's nothing.
That's been the gist of a lot of people answering.
Yeah.
It's like we're talking,
Yeah.
we just went through some what ifs.
Yeah.
There's some experience there.
Honestly, I don't even remember the answer I gave you to that question.
Nobody does. I answered the question. I've hosted it, and I was serious in my answers, but I think one of the things that's funny is why I'm really into philosophy, and I'm not sure if anybody knows this or only a few people do, is in my work and job and my thinking, just basically I can provide structure, but I just provoke. All I do is provoke thinking, provoke from a union rep standpoint, provoke. Because for me, things are fundamentally bullshit. I don't accept things as they are at all. So for me, it's kind of a full bullshit thing. So I've had some strong, strong reactions. Strong reaction to that. But I think one of the things I'm trying to do in the podcast is build community and just put in the idea of merits, that it's really good to have fun, really good to perform, and even if it is not really good to perform or you don't do it to feel really good, if you need that to fucking breathe, then fucking do it. Create, think, and because I don't know, if I didn't have the message prior to the pandemic, I got the message now, in a cosmic way of doing what we're doing. And if the romance of Conan and Danette,
God damn it!
if the romance of of Conan and Dan does not inspire us to think about love.
And see, now I want to go back to see if Dan ever showed up again. Anywhere.
I mean, I got attached to her, and I want to let's talk about Dan just for one more second. We're gonna close it up, but what I wanted to mention about Dan, here's the reason why I liked her. Right, first of all, she's working hard. Right, she's got her little cap on. She's looking cute. She's wearing she's just doing her thing in the city. 1978, New York City, trying to get the cab fare, and into her life enters Conan with his sword, who has attacked her livelihood and destroyed it, but she's drawn You know, so it's a complicated story. Maybe I made more out of it than was really
No,
there in those
No, I
panels.
think there was a lot to say there.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank everybody here joining the show. A lot of fun, supersized episode, and while there's a lot of material to produce, I am guaranteeing to listeners and guests who are here at this table that there will be a what if session. I think it's the only word we can provide. A what if session part 2. Thank you, everybody. What if
thank you, Ken.
episode number 1 wrap.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing,